Ladies and gentlemen, the Chairman.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this full council of Staffordshire County Council. Before we start, I will call on my Vice Chairman to do prayers before the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Firstly, we have been requested to pray for the situation in Turkey and Syria, which is pretty horrendous. Those that have been watching the news, it is pretty horrendous what's happening there, and it's unimaginable what you would do if you was in that situation. So I'm firstly going to give a particular prayer for those nations and the people in those nations, and then continue with the rest of the prayers that we normally do. So if you just bow our heads. Lord, we thank you for this time, and we thank you that we can come before you as a council to petition you, Lord, for the people of Syria and the people of Turkey. We cannot imagine how awful that situation is, Lord. And we ask you to be there to comfort them, wherever there is faith, Lord, to be there to comfort them. That we send emergency services out as fast as humanly possible, Lord, and we alleviate as best as we can the terrible suffering that's there. Amen. Please stay remain standing. For our country, for the King, and for all those who are set in authority under him. Bless, O Lord, we beseech thee, our King and Parliament, for all who bear any office in the state. Save us from the sins that most easily beset us. Bless every effort for the well-being of our people, and make us a nation fearing thee and doing righteousness to the glory of thy holy name, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. For the county of Staffordshire and for the work of the county council, Almighty God, who has given us this good land for our heritage, we humbly beseech thee to bless us with honourable industry, sound learning and unwavering faith. Defend our liberties, preserve our unity, and due with wisdom and grace to all those whom is entrusted the authority of government, and ever lead us into the paths of righteousness and the peace to the honour and glory of thy name, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. We commend to thy merciful care, O Lord, all members and employers of this council who are passing through suffering and distress, beseeching thee to grant them according to their need, peace of heart, strength of body, health of mind, for the sake of Jesus Christ, our Saviour. Amen. Amen. Go before us, Lord, in all that we do with thy most gracious favour, and further us with thy continual help, that in all our works begun, continued and ended in, thee we may glorify, thy holy name, and finally by thy mercy obtain everlasting life, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. We'll now all say together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, for ever and ever. Amen. Mr. Chairman.
Please be seated. Mr. Chief Executive, are there any apologies for absence?
Mr. Chairman, we have received apologies from the following members: John Francis, Kath Perry, Jonathan Price and Conor Wildman.
I'm also told that Mr. Wilkes has given an apology. Does any member wish to declare an interest? Councillor Willington.
Could I declare an interest in the item that involves nursing homes on the leader statement? And the interest is I'm a non-executive director of Nexus Cares.
That's item 5.3. Councillor DeVille.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chairman. Likewise, Chairman, as a non-exec director of Nexus Care, there are various mentions of Nexus this morning, and I declare the necessary interest, Chairman.
Thank you. Confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 8th of December 2022 be signed as a true record. Is that agreed?
Raise an issue on the minutes because on page 6 of the minutes, page 10 of the agenda pack, it records very correctly that I asked a question of the council on December the 8th, but I have not yet received a full response. I had a technical response, but I have not had a full response. Do you think it's acceptable that I should have to wait 2 months for an answer to a question? I did chase the answer to the question before Christmas, and the cabinet member was asked to respond. But I don't know whether he's unwilling to answer or whether he's incapable of answering. But I don't think it's really acceptable, and I would hope, Chairman, that you would support me in this and ask for this question to be fully answered.
Thank you. If after the meeting you let me know who the cabinet member was, I will then speak to the cabinet member and come back to you. Chairman's correspondence. Staffordshire residents recognised in His Majesty the King's New Year's honours. I'm sure that members will wish to join me in congratulating the following Staffordshire residents who have received honours in His Majesty the King's New Year's honours. Professor Janet Mary Lord, of Barton under Needlewood, Professor of Immune Cell Biology and Director of MRC Versus Arthritis Centre for Musculoskeletal Ageing Research at the University of Birmingham, Commander of the Order of the British Empire, CBE, for service to older people. Most people in this chamber, unfortunately. Mr. Jandir Kumar Sharma, OBE, of Purton, Principal of Walsall College, CBE, for services to further education. Michael John Allen, of Horton, Chairman of Horton Parish Council, Member of the Order of British Empire, MBE, for services to the community in Staffordshire. Mrs. Angela Mary Ham, of Lichfield, lately the Head of Business Support Services of a National Memorial Arboretum, MBE, for services to national commemoration. Dr. Ataya Kamal, of Burton-upon-Trent, health physiologist and senior lecturer at the School of Social Science at Birmingham City University. MBE, for service to health psychology during COVID-19. Mr. Elliot Albert Lancaster, of Newcastle-under-Lyme, Director of Utter Rubbish. MBE, for services to youth empowerment and sustainability in Staffordshire. Yes, that is what it says, and that is the name of the company. Mrs. Sarah Jane Coffey, of Lichfield, Executive Assistant to the CEO of the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games, Medalist of the Order of the British Empire, BEM, for services to sport. Mr. Albert Gordon John Dale, of Eddingale, BEM, for his service to the community in Eddingale. Mr. Arthur Leonard Renshaw, of Marchington, 40 years a member of the local parish council, BEM, for services to the community in Draycott in the Clay. Also on with an OBE was Miss Sarah Williams, Chief Executive of Staffordshire Chamber of Commerce, for services to the community, and with an MBE for Mrs. Catherine May Nash, of Ashbourne, recently the manager of the Vaccination Centre, Burton Pirelli Stadium, for services to the community of East Staffordshire. May I take this opportunity to welcome Councillor Nigel Yates to this chamber and to congratulate him on his re-election as a county councillor representing the Biddulph North County Electoral Division. Welcome. Councillor Flunder, do we wish now to proceed with petitions? Okay. The last item of the day was going to be petitions. Because we have people in the public gallery and children, we're now going to bring that matter forward to item 4A. So we'll now go ahead with petitions. Does any member have a petition they wish to present? Councillor Flunder.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing the item forward. And apologies for people turning up a little late for the members in the committee. They had a few issues on the traffic on the way here this morning, so they only turned up 2 minutes before the start of the meeting. But photographs were taken, so everyone's now happy to thank you for coming along today. I would like to present to this full council meeting a petition of over 600 signatories I received this morning from the children, parents, carers, teachers and the local residents of Endon. The petition asks for the installation of a pelican or other type of crossing along the stretch of the A53 through the centre of Endon village. With some 17,000 vehicles from a traffic count that was well before the pandemic, passing along this section of road in front of 2 schools in the village. I hope you will join me in thanking the children from St Luke's Academy and their parents for sitting through and for seeing what we're doing this morning and for coming that way in difficult conditions. And for sharing their concerns with you all through the letter that most of you had received in your pigeonholes earlier in this week. They would like you to know that there are some 900 children who attend the 2 schools, and they have been trying to fill a vacant school crossing patrol officer position for between 2 and 3 years. The Parish Council would also like you to know that they are full support of the petition, and the A53 is the main trunk road between the M6 and the Potteries towards Leek and the Staffordshire Moorlands Peak District. The Parish Council would like you to note that there are no local parking locations, so many children and parents with young siblings have to cross this busy main road every day. The Council and myself have received complaints and concerns from the whole community, as well as parents and the school, and there have been some road traffic incidents and some near misses involving children along this stretch of road. I have therefore supported the petition and have already asked the Highways team to instigate a safety study along this section of the A53, with costs being allocated from my DHP fund. I would like to take the findings of this study back to the Parish Council and the school as soon as I receive it. I hope that this report will be completed as soon as possible. And thank you again for coming and showing your concerns with us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Flunder. Thank you. Item 5. Medium-term financial strategy, 2023 to 2028, and 2023-24 budget and council tax. At the end of the debate, in accordance with statutory regulations, I propose to take a name vote on the recommendations before the council. Members are reminded that under section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992, if they are 2 months or more in arrears with their council tax, it is an offence for them to vote on the budget. Members are also required to disclose at this meeting the fact that this council applies to them, that this section of the Act applies to them. Councillor Alan White, will you move consideration of the report, please?
Good morning, Mr Chairman. Thank you. I move consideration of the medium-term financial strategy 2023 to 2028 and 2023-2024 budget and council tax.
Thank you. Councillor Philip White, will you second?
I second the motion.
I call on Councillor Ian Parry to present.
Mr Chairman, good morning. Members of Council, good morning. I have the pleasure to present to you on behalf of the Leader and myself the Medium-Term Financial Strategy and Annual Budget 2023-24. Before I do that, Mr. Chairman, through you, if I may offer a number of thanks to people involved in this process. First of all, I'd like to thank the Financial Director of Finance for Stafford County Council and his brilliant team for all the hard work, the guidance, support and advice in our decision-making that allows us to bring this report to you today. I'm most grateful to the Director of Finance and his team for that support, and I know the rest of the Cabinet feel the same too. Can I also add my thanks to my Cabinet colleagues and to my corporate leadership team colleagues also for their endeavours in producing this report and in delivering our medium-term financial strategy and budgets in the past. I'd also, through you, Mr. Chairman, also like to thank the Financial Strategy, Medium-Term Financial Strategy Working Group, Task Group, chaired by Mr. Greatrex. I'm most grateful to Mr. Greatrex and members of that committee for the rigorous work over many months that they have put into scrutinising the proposals within the budget and the assumptions within the budget and the MTFS. It's a comfort to me to stand here today knowing that our budget and our medium-term financial strategy has gone through such a transparent and robust process before I'm able to present it to you. That is a great comfort to me. That is a great, I think, assurance to the people of Staffordshire as well. So I'm most grateful to Councillor Greatrex and their team. The recommendations of the task group were presented to Cabinet a couple of weeks ago as we approved the report, and we accepted in full or in part all of the recommendations of the task group. Again, I think that's remarkable in the sound work of that group. This year, they focused on risk and reserves, which was extremely useful also, because that's partially where my mind's been and where I know the finance team's mind has been as well. And more on that later. So thank you very much indeed to all of those that have been involved in this. You don't need me to tell you, Mr. Chairman, members of Council, that this year has been a year of turbulence for this Council, for this economy, for the world. The impact that it's had on our budget this year has been pretty well unprecedented, probably more so than during the pandemic. The cataclysmic events of war and the implications of that on the global economy, on inflation, on energy costs, have been felt by everyone, not just in this country, not just across the world, but specifically in this Council, it's been an extremely challenging time. But I'd like us now to look forward, because we're in a position now where our medium-term financial strategy, as presented to you this morning, is balanced over the term. We have a flat MTFS, which very few councils will be able to say and present. We're in a fortunate position to be there, to have a balanced budget, and to be able to make the additional investments in services and in future provision that will put us in an even greater position, I think, in the future. But it's not without its risks. It's not without its challenges. Key area of risk and challenge, if you like, is in the area that is always has to be our highest priority. Every society, every community is measured by how it treats its children and elderly. We spend 60% of our council's budget on providing care for those who need us, elderly and children. This year, £400 million, probably our highest ever. So there are no cuts there are no cuts in this budget, and there are certainly no cuts that affect children and adults. So there are no cuts, and there are no negative impacts on children and adults. On the contrary, we're investing in those areas. We have invested where we've had to invest in children's services with additional children coming into the care system, some with specific needs, which means that we've had to increase budgets to support that. And at the same time, whilst we've tried to get ahead of that through children's transformation, which in itself has taken longer and has been tougher than we expected, we've also underwritten any additional needs that requires. And on top of that, invested around £6 million on additional resources for children so that we can finally, hopefully, nail that transformation which will deliver great things for children and families in this county. And for our elderly, nearly £6 million in additional residential provision, additional resources for demand management, extremely efficient working with our health partners to ensure that Staffordshire has single figures or almost zero figures of people requiring discharge from hospital, something which hits the headlines across the country but is not a headline in Staffordshire. As in so many things, we are an outlier in the way that we deliver the important things for the people of this county. And because growth in our economy, supporting our economy matters, we will again be investing over £100 million in our economy and infrastructure projects this year, in addition to the work and the brilliant work of the Deputy Leader and his officers in securing additional funding for major improvements to infrastructure around the A50, A38, which will be a magnificent addition to the capability of the Staffordshire economy to attract new investment and capital to this county and jobs. Since 2014, Mr. Chairman, this council has created 11,000 or enabled 11,000 jobs through the investments that this county has made that has enabled that capital and those jobs to happen. And that continues to happen. New investment in Chatterley Valley, new investment in the Stafford Relief Road, new investment into infrastructure to allow a large distribution depot to be built on the Red Hill area site. Additional jobs, additional infrastructure investment, additional robustness for the Staffordshire economy, which in itself is an outlier. We continue to have lower unemployment in this county. And again, through the tremendous work of the Deputy Leader and his team, new entrepreneurs entering the market. Almost 50% more startups with limited investment in this county. The lifeblood of every economy, local or national, is entrepreneurship. New people investing, startups growing. Not all of them will survive, but our efforts now, through the Deputy Leader's team, is to make sure that they are maintained and survive and grow and prosper. So terrific work in those areas. And outside of that, something which I know is very close to the hearts of every member in this chamber, highways. Yes, highways. So last year we invested £50 million extra capital in highways, and we feel that's about the optimum level where annually you can inject to actually get good value for money and effective outcomes. But on top of that, investing £2 million of revenue expenditure so that we can improve service delivery and get a better line of sight on how we can be more efficient with what we do. And thanks to my colleague, David Williams, and his team, we've got a much better handle and line of sight on how our investment, how our work in that field happens. We want to put more into that. We want to look at areas like flooding issues, areas around drainage. Those are the areas that are damaging our infrastructure. We will be investigating and exploring how new investment, and we will provide new investment to try and achieve that. But overall, we'll be spending £50 million next year in a range of issues, a range of areas to do with maintenance and improvement of our highways. So let's not let it be said that this county is not investing where it matters. We've already invested in chunks of 30 million, 20 million and 15 million in the not too recent past in those trying to catch up in many respects on the need to improve our infrastructure. And apart from that, we need to have fun in our lives. And my colleague and her committed, passionate team in culture and leisure areas have done a fantastic job. We're almost there with a new history centre here in Stafford, which is going to be a terrific asset, cultural asset, to this county. We're almost there with the Shire Hall, which is not just a business centre, a terrific addition, but also is going to be part of our cultural heritage here in the county town, which we all in the county, I'm sure, will be pleased with. And on top of that, the work that my colleague Victoria Wilson has been engaged in terms of empowering communities, building on the great work that we discovered during the pandemic period, and also the work that needs to be done in improving our library offer, getting more out of those assets for local communities, is bringing terrific results. But none of this can be done, Mr. Chairman, without resources, without income. And I stand before you today to present to you a budget which means that we will need to increase our council tax, along with probably 90% of the councils in this country, some are even higher, an increase in our council tax of 4.9%, 4.99%, which obviously is something we do not do lightly. We have always been a low-spend council, one of the lowest funded councils, and a low-taxing council. We've always been in the lowest quartile of council tax levy, and will remain a low-spending, low-council tax council. Nevertheless, we realise that at this time, this particular time, when so many families will be struggling, that we don't do this lightly. And we give a commitment, and I know the leader will reinforce this because I've heard him so many times say it, that we will give a commitment that every penny of that we will ensure we spend efficiently and effectively for the good of the people that we serve. We will always drive out waste. We will always call it out fast and make sure we get on top of it, as we have done in so many areas. We're not afraid of investing. We're not afraid of failing. But when we fail, we will fail fast, and we will call these things out. We've had a reasonable settlement from government, which has been not as bad as we expected, I think would be the phrase. And it means there are some unanswered questions that will need to be answered at some point in the not-too-distant future. Those questions around social care and health, what are the implications in terms of demand management, in terms of cost of care, and the implications upon those who have to pay for care. Those are unanswered questions. They were unanswered when we were expected to perhaps do something around that this year, which was removed, of course, in the budget. But that will come back. So we need to prepare for some of that. We need to understand that. Our core spending power how much we have to spend has increased by just over 10%. Most of that's come from council tax. We've had increases in grant funding with health and care, which is a significant amount. Something like 102 million, I think it is, in total care-type grants that we've had in the county, which shows, I think, government commitment to an extent, as well as our own commitment, and wanted to do something about that. Rate support grant, that small grant that we get from government, which used to be a big grant, it's now a very small grant, remains flat. We're therefore grateful to receive that. And of course, New Homes Bonus surprisingly stays there, but it's quite small for the county anyway. So with that, Chairman, I would like to move, if I may, to the recommendations that are to the Council. And on page 19 of the Council's agenda, under item 5, on page 1 there, I would like to recommend those recommendations as printed on page 19, page 20 and page 21. And with that, Chairman, on behalf of the Leader and myself, I would like to commend this medium-term financial strategy and budget to this Council and seek your approval.
Thanks to Councillor Parry. Before we go to any vote, I want to open it now to a full debate of the Council. The first person asked to speak is Councillor Mrs Charlotte Atkins.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I too want to congratulate officers for putting together a balanced budget in very difficult times. But it will impose pain on our residents trying to make ends meet during a cost of living crisis that has impacted on so many families. It is hard to justify a nearly 5% hike in council tax when the County Council is delivering yet more cuts in real terms and asking communities more and more to look after their own. The Cabinet is coming up with an innovation programme, but in reality, it's an austerity package by any other name. More real cuts to survive the government's anti-local government agenda. The reality is that this budget is driven by social care and by the government's sticking plaster approach to meeting the challenge of rising demand for social care, mounting costs of social care, and the underpaid and undervalued workforce. Social care reform that former Prime Minister Boris Johnson said that he had fixed has been postponed for 2 years, perhaps even longer. But the ageing population cannot be put on hold. In the meantime, we have some additional social care grants and the freedom to impose a social care precept for another 2 years. But this approach is not sustainable. Loading social care precepts onto the council tax is a quick fix, but council tax is regressive, impacting far more on the poor than on the well-off, and disadvantaging too less affluent local authorities still further. We all know that social care needs reform, but that can't be delivered on the basis of annual government handouts. The County Council was given just 2 weeks to come up with new proposals to speed up delayed hospital discharges into social care. That extra money from the one-off social care discharge fund was welcome, but that doesn't amount to a strategy. It was a panic measure to reduce the political damaging queues of ambulances outside acute hospitals. Social care takes up nearly 2/3 of the county's budget. It wasn't so long ago that social care accounted for just half the budget. So as a result, when demand for social care rises, everything else gets squeezed. Therefore, it's no surprise that our roads are plagued with potholes as the lion's share goes to social care. And it's not likely to get any better when the social care grant is based on data which is a decade old and does not account for deprivation. The Levelling Up Fund is now the flavour of the month. But that pits community against community and ties up valuable officer time with no guarantee of success. While the Levelling Up Fund has been promoted, we've seen cuts in capital for highways, for instance. But does that make any sense? Swapping funds for crucial infrastructure, such as roads, with a bidding lottery process where some towns like Leek win while other towns are forgotten. Local government should be fairly funded in the long term, and giving local government the chance to direct their resources where they want to see them directed. Local government is a much better place than central government to decide where its funds should go. We have been given a bit of a breathing space for the next 2 years, but after that there's massive uncertainty. Is that because in 2 years' time we're going to be facing a general election? I don't know. That's up to the Prime Minister or the present Prime Minister. But this discredited government has run out of road, and it is about time they took local government seriously and gave us proper long-term funding. Therefore, this Labour group won't be supporting this budget. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs Gillian Padaisi, please.
Thank you, Chair. One comment and one question, please. It seems to be a classic answer by this government and administration whenever issues are raised. Well, we're investing X millions of pounds in this. We've invested X million of pounds in this. And we were just told that for the highways budget, there's now an investment of 15 million or whatever. Well, whether it's 15 million or 15 trillion, all people out there are interested in is that there are still way too many potholes in our roads. My question, Chair, is around page 27, point 34, that we're going to be making use of new technologies. If I could ask, please, Chair, which new technologies we're talking about, and if I could come back, Chair, depending on the answer that I get.
Ms Padaisi, no, you can't come back. It's one speak. You can carry on then, yes. But you have 3 minutes and 44 seconds left.
Okay, thank you. All right. Now, this makes... If we're talking about people, older people in particular, being discharged from hospital with an iPad in their hand and told, don't worry, you'll be monitored from a hospital or a room somewhere. And members may be aware that it has been trialled in the United States and nurses are fighting this because it is not the same as face-to-face care, and it is leading to poorer and unsafe care, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Sutton, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and shall we move on to some positivity, perhaps? You won't be surprised that I probably want to talk about children's services, and my colleague Ian Parry did speak about additional investments, but I just wanted to specify in particular a little bit about that. This MTF will approve additional investment in children's services and SEND, with more SEND key workers, more educational psychologists, increased and changes in the grading system of social workers to help with workforce issues, and add additional capacity across the whole of the business. And this will help to embed transformation, because with any change programme that you're looking at, that has to be a small amount. It's never perfect first time. There has to be a small amount of changes to actually get it right. So what this will go towards in embedding transformation, and transformation is not a system of how many social workers we've got here and what they do and whatever. It is a whole service, a whole cultural change. It's a change in the way that we do our business. So we want to and we will continue to work with families The aim overall is to keep families together, to keep children where they should be with their parents and carers, as the outcomes for children are nearly always better in those cases. But we will never shy away where it is necessary and to safeguard a child to bring them into care. But that situation, what we want for children is loving, caring families, foster carers, kinship and adoption if those things are appropriate. And residential care will never be the first option in most circumstances. But where it is, then it will be residential care. But we will always be looking for permanency if that's appropriate, but also how we can bring children back to their parents if appropriate, if we can do the work with families to be able to do that, and of course if it's safe to do so, because as I said before, that's where outcomes are much better. And we are working on that going forward, and it is being embedded very well. I'd just like at this moment to pay particular credit to our DCS, who is leading that work on the floor, and myself and the leader have been out to various parts of children's services, and the response there has been really positive about the investment that this MTFS that's just been presented will bring going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Councillor Nigel Yates, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And before I start, may I say that it's an absolute honour to represent both my hometown and to represent my county. And I'll do my best to serve both to the best, certainly to the best of my abilities. What I wanted to ask is a simple question to start off with, is does this budget support the provision of holiday school meals? Obviously, I'm very aware that we're living through a severe cost of living crisis, and you know, our communities are suffering. It's provision which has been provided in the past year, and it was accepted very, very well. And I'm just wondering whether we can continue with that support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Philip Atkins, please.
Thanks, Chairman. You know, local government finance is so complex that even the experts find it difficult to understand. And I just want to congratulate the finance officers, Ian Parry and the Cabinet for putting together this budget. The times that we have at the moment are really precarious and troublesome. Inflation where it is. So to come in at 4.99 is really good. We haven't had an alternate budget, so I presume the opposition agree with us. And also, I think there's a lot of work that's gone on in the past, innovative work with our staff who deliver the services that we provide as a council that have enabled us to keep the pressure on households through council tax down to as low a level as possible. I can remember the time when Labour's answer to pressures on the budget was to increase council tax by 13.9%. That was really troublesome. That was their cure to a budget problem. It's not ours. There is even more innovation that has got to be done. And there's also got to be a feeling, which is strong in Staffordshire, that people do look after themselves and that they look after their neighbours in a community spirit. That is why, with our people, our residents, we've been able to manage to keep the council tax down. I know that most of you, like myself, our email boxes are full of complaints about gullies, potholes and everything else, but it's a very small percentage of the work that the county council delivers. And I know when I was leader, I'd virtually have a weekly, monthly insight to some horrific story in children's services, where, unfortunately, it costs an absolute fortune to look after a particular child. And the same goes for some of our adults as well. So it's quite right with the 2/3 of our budget goes on social services. And there's a bit of a plea that our National Health Service don't think of us as a cheap form of doing things that they ought to be doing as well, because I can remember there was a hell of an argument between nursing care and social care and where the responsibility lies. It is not right that the council taxpayer should have to fund that when they've already funded it through general taxation. So I just wanted to compliment the officers and the staff who've put this budget together, the Cabinet, Ian Parry for overseeing it. I know in all the time I was leader it's really difficult to put together, and also that everybody's got a wish list. We'd all like to have school holiday schemes, 20-mile-an-hour limit outside every school, and also a pelican crossing. But there is a thing called the PV squared formula, which fairly allocates where these things are, pelican crossings. And so, as councillors, we have to be fair, and sometimes we have to be firm. But at the moment, Staffordshire has still got one of the lowest, not the lowest, but fifth lowest county council tax in the land, which isn't bad. And there's some of them that are at the higher end, and I'm not going to name them, that have never done innovation. They've never changed the way that they work, and they not going to use the word extort. They extort council tax out of their residents to continue to deliver services at a higher cost than Staffordshire staff do. So I'm just going to finish by saying thank you to our staff for the work that they do, because without them, we couldn't deliver those services.
Councillor Saeed Hussain, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I would like to associate with the Vice Chairman and express my solidarity for the people of Turkey and Syria, and we would like to stand shoulder by shoulder with them, and also people of Ukraine as well. Mr. Chairman, if I can seek your attentions on page 28, paragraph 42. In there, we can see 23 to 24. The pressure is 39 million now, and it will be. Is it better now? Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. I would like to seek your attention on page 28, paragraph 42, please, and where we can see in 2023-2024, the financial pressure is £39 million, and in 2 or 3 years' time, it will be almost double by £78 million. So does it show anything sustainable, something? And we can we can see this one, Mr. Chairman, that even though my honourable cabinet member mentioned so many factors there, like wars and other international pressures or something, and was pretty surprised to see he has never mentioned the negative impact of that so-called mini budget, whether it is from the Westminster, it is coming to our areas as well. The reason I'm mentioning this, Mr. Chairman, so many people's dream of the home becomes shattered because of that mini budget. They got to pay more interest rate and more mortgages. Yet again, we are imposing nearly 5% of council tax. I'm talking about those people who got barely struggling to put the food on the table for their kids. I know there is support, there are so many supports, but we can only stretch their income that much, but we cannot. And hence, Mr. Chairman, I am a bit reluctant to support this budget. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councillor Mike Worthington, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I do apologise for my late arrival. I do blame Amy for all the traffic lights on my way. I'll have to speak very strong words to Councillor Williams. I've never been late before for full council, so I do apologise, Chair. But no, as you know, I'm Chair of Audit and also been in accounts for over 40 years. I understand how difficult it is. And I think it's important for all members to know that Ian, in his wisdom, has taken over 2 million out of reserves. Now, we should think how lucky we are as a council, because some county councils can't take 2 million out of reserves. They're not in our brilliant financial position as we are. So I think, you know, the people who've put this together should be commended. And if there's no alternative budget being put forward by the opposition, I think we should all support this, because I hate putting council tax up on any front, as all the members will know that. But unfortunately, County Council, 60% of this budget goes to looking after people. And as people are living longer, this is the point people are missing, people are living longer, there's better medication out there, people with cancer treatments, they're living longer, and these people have to be cared for. So I have no objection to paying 60% of my budget to looking after these people. So I commend the budget, and I wish all the officers all the better the next 2 years. Thank you.
I will call the name David Williams next then.
Thank you, Chairman. So obviously within my portfolio questions were asked, and I thought it'd be quite appropriate for me to address them really. The fact that we have potholes, we will have potholes. We will always have potholes. That's the way of the world. Every single country, every single district, county has potholes. They will always work. But what we're doing is being realistic with what we spend, with what we can actually address. So actually, if I was given 1.2 billion, which is exactly what it will take to make the A roads in this county perfect, I wouldn't be able to spend that because the materials aren't available, the manpower is not available, the machinery is not available. Well, what we are doing, taking the budget in a very, very sensible way, is doing what we can do to address the issues. New technology. We're using old expired vegetable oil in our gritters. We're trialling that because it's a lot better for the environment. It's not cheap, but we're trialling it. We've trialled the pothole pro from JCB, and we're in talks, or we're going to be in talks about looking at where we can utilise it. We've got the winter velocity patcher, which we trialled for this winter. We've never trialled it before. It was to try to reduce the winter work stack of Cat 3 defects. Unfortunately, it didn't work. So what we've got a new machine. It had this hairdryer attachment looking thing on the front. It was supposed to dry it, and then the finished result would be these lovely patches of Cat 3s all mended. Unfortunately, it didn't work to the standard that I wanted. So we've stopped it. We've stopped it. We're not spending anything else. We've halted that, and we'll retry it somewhere else. We've tried the thermal patching system. That has worked in areas in Codsall. And actually, the finish on that thermal patcher, which removes a huge amount of tarmac, which is really, really expensive. And when we're looking at council tax going up 5%, my tarmac's gone up by nearly 30%. This is where the costs are. And remembering from the council tax, for every pound, I get 6 pence. 6 pence to mend all the roads that everybody wants. We've trialled weed control vehicles. We've trialled hot water weeding systems. We've trialled new types of the whole place approach. So we'll go in and do every defect within an area. We've got gully teams that we're bringing extra for the winter that target difficult and unknown problematic gullies, which we've made to make sure that nobody gets flooded out over Christmas. And since I've taken over the role, that has not happened. We have been replacing damaged gullies, which I've even been thanked for by opposition members in Burton, where they've got certain types of gullies that are now outdated, and as we replenish them, we've been replacing them. So I think Councillor Pardacey needs to look at exactly what this authority and this administration is doing. We are doing a lot of good work out there. We are targeting the areas that our public and our members are telling us about. We are transforming the whole way that Highways is working, so that the teams not only are being changed around and we are restructuring, but they are changing the way they work so we're more responsive. We're definitely more interactive because of our new work with our reporting systems on my staff's app. And actually, I have to say, I find it a bit upsetting, the fact that the amount of, like you say, you're delayed from my work. So I delayed the leader the other day coming in to a cabinet members meeting, because I have a double-edged sword. I get moaned at if I don't mend the holes, and when I do mend the holes, then they moan at me because I've closed the road to mend them. End of the day, that is my job. And realistically, we are working and we are going out there with the communities, with the members, and we're showing the fact that we are being really proactive. So instead of putting us down, actually we need to really, really say that they are doing a great amount of work, and I say that from all the Highways people that I work with. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mark DeVille, please.
Chairman, many thanks. And also thanks to Mr Parry for bringing that budget report this morning. Tell you what, Chairman, I bet many local authorities across the United Kingdom wish they were talking about the level of investment that Mr Parry was speaking of. You know, investment in infrastructure that Mr Williams so eloquently described, the innovation and the work that our highways team are doing. The great investment in jobs and in the local economy, Chairman. You'll all know I'm extremely proud to live where I live. I'm extremely proud of Staffordshire. Great place to live, great place to work, great place to learn, and a great place to play. These investments, Chairman, can only make Staffordshire an even better place. We're extremely hard-working people in Staffordshire, aren't we, Chairman? As Mr Atkins said, we're people who look after ourselves. We help ourselves, but we also help each other. And I think that the real bottom line of this budget, yes, we're helping entrepreneurs, isn't that important? Small businesses are the lifeblood of this county and the lifeblood of the country. So yes, we're helping local businesses, start-up businesses grow, but we're also helping, Chairman, and will always help the people who need it most. This is an excellent budget, Chairman. I'd also like to pass my thanks on to all of our council officers who deliver these wonderful services day in, day out, to the gritting teams that are out in all weathers, David, out at midnight and the early hours of the day, to our great care workers. We're so proud of those and the work that they do. And this budget that Mr Parry's presented today helps all of those areas to provide an even better service to our residents, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Anne Edgeler, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and good morning, everyone. I just want to remind this Labour group, when this county council was under Labour control, what a mess the care of our children was in. I don't want to go back to those days, and if you want the evidence, I have it. I, for one, am pleased that we're investing more money to the care of our children, and I want to thank Councillor Mark Sutton and his team for the work that they are doing. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mike Wilcox, please.
Thank you, Chairman. In supporting this medium-term financial strategy and the budget, I would like to put into some context, given the very difficult and precarious position that many authorities up and down this country find themselves in at this moment in time. I know from my work on the LGA that with the added pressures of inflation, energy costs, together with pay settlements, not forgetting the increase in demand for our services within social care, and even given the additional funding support that we've seen, still feels and falls woefully short. And many authorities are having to utilise some, if not all, of their reserves to produce a balanced budget. Mr Chairman, in contrast to all those factors, we have before us here today a set of papers clearly acknowledging the pressures that we face, but I do believe the measured way in which we have managed our finances over many years has enabled this council to take prudent and well thought out decisions in order to meet the challenges that we face and once again produce a balanced budget, whilst at the same time continuing to deliver the key services that our residents expect. Mr Chairman, no one in this chamber can forecast the future, and I know that the Cabinet holder is well aware of the challenges ahead. But I do believe we are well placed in Staffordshire to financially meet those challenges and the difficult times that we will face head on. But, Mr Chairman, we must call and continue to lobby government to reintroduce as a priority the multi-year settlement. That will enable councils to budget more effectively and help plan for the vulnerable times ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. Councillor Colin Greatrix, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It's good to follow Councillor Wilcox, who's given some context of how it's affecting other local government, and I think it's very pertinent that we do examine what Staffordshire has been able to do with this budget. In comparison, I mean, some of the comments that have come from the other side, for instance, comparing this to the levelling up and whether the county's actually got an influence on the levelling up agenda. It's a participant rather than an organiser of levelling up. So Councillor Atkins can make a valid criticism, but there's not really much that the county can do apart from make its applications. Similarly, the comments about the choice, if you like, between highways and care provision, I think as Councillor Parry has demonstrated, this is a budget that covers everything. We're trying to keep all the balls in the air at the same time. We're trying to keep investment going in various directions, as well as providing for our current obligations on care, and as Councillor Williams has taken great pains to say, covering the potholes as well. Councillor Pardisi's talked about care and how that's provided. I mean, how that is provided is somewhat influenced by our involvement with other partners, and also, as has been said before, making sure the budget's still there, that we're doing something that's improving the provision through the sort of things that the MTFS group have been looking for. We've been trying to examine, wherever possible, that things should be done faster, or that things should be looked at that haven't been looked at, or that things should be stopped where necessary. And they're the sort of things that I think we really need to look at when we're looking at the budget, rather than to criticise things that we haven't got control over. And just to put, again, context, as Councillor Wilcox has done already, we're talking about a 4.99% increase in an environment where CPI is at 11.1. In the report, the latest CPI figure was 11.1%. So that's the nature of the problem. And when you bear in mind that the fuel charges that we pay as a county have gone through the roof, and wages have increased, and I know it's a healthy situation that all government has had this benefit of increases, particularly at the bottom end of the pay structure, but that's got to be accommodated, it's got to be budgeted for. And all of that is making it more difficult to do exactly what Councillor Parry and the Cabinet want to do, which is have an investment programme. And various people have spoken about investment and the importance of it. I've just reeled off here that we've talked about investment in jobs in the economy, investment in highways, investment in children's services, investment in adult care. All of those require money. So the fact that 600 million can be spared to be put into investment gets us out of the current situation and gives us the chance of making long-term benefits to the residents.
Thank you. Councillor Philip Ward, do you wish to speak before I call the leader?
Very much, Chair. I won't try and add too much more to the debate, because I think there's been a lot of discussion around my portfolio area of economic development, and I think it's apparent from that discussion and from the report the success that the Staffordshire economy continues to enjoy, and the role that the County Council plays in supporting that, both through making Staffordshire an attractive place to invest in, both for private businesses, and we've heard much discussion about those, and indeed from government, whatever the weather in terms of government, however they want to deliver funding, Staffordshire always makes sure that it's well positioned to receive that funding, and the evidence is there for all to see. And in terms of those smaller businesses and younger businesses, we're there to help them too. And we're particularly proud of that increase in the number of startup businesses we've seen over the last couple of years. They are the lifeblood of our economy, they are the future, and for many years we have had far too few of them. But due to a prudent investment by this council, we're now up to the national average for that, with a much higher survivability rate than the national average, and we do want to go further with that. The only other thing I'd like to say is just, although Councillor Parry and his team have done some excellent work on this budget, I'd just like to say a word of thanks as well to Councillor Sutherland, his predecessor. The fact that we're in the position now to weather the storm in terms of inflation, thanks to Putin's illegal war in particular,
is down to the prudent management of those finances a few years ago by Councillor Sutherland, and those reserves that we're drawing on a very small part of are down to his foresight. So I just wanted to say a word of thanks to him so it wasn't lost in the debate. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Councillor Parry, do you wish to sum up before I call the leader?
Forgive me, Chairman, I wasn't aware that we were. I'm allowed to ride with part, am I? No, I'll leave it to the leader, I think, because I think the leader's got it covered, to be frank. I'll delegate up, yes.
Leader of the Council.
That's an excellent bit of delegation upwards. Enjoy that. Where were we? Colleagues, I've been a councillor for just shy of 20 years now, and for 19 of those years, initially in David Smith's cabinet at Lichfield District Council, we've had to deal with government cuts. They were called the Gershon savings initially. And under successive governments and successive prime ministers, and I'm starting to lose count of the number of prime ministers we've had, to be honest with you, local government has been a poor relation. But all of us in this chamber, our predecessors and those to come, will continue to deliver for the people that we represent. You get out there week in, week out, listening to their concerns, feeding them back to the council and making sure that we as a council do what's right for them as best we can with the limited financial resources that we have available to us. Asking people to pay more is always difficult. We never, ever, as a council, come together and think to ourselves, you know what, let's just lift some more money out of people's pockets for vanity projects, for money that's not spent efficiently. We never, ever do that at all. We give a guarantee every year that the money we take from people is wisely spent, it's efficiently spent, and we make sure that the systems that we put in place, the services that we provide, are as effective as they possibly can be. Asking people to pay an additional 4.99% council tax is a lot. It's undoubtedly the case. But today, inflation stands at 10.55%. In a cost of living crisis, we're asking for less than half of that. We have our own pressures as a consequence of fuel going up, wages going up, and most importantly, the demand for our services are going up as a consequence of the circumstances we're living through. So we need to continue to provide those services in challenging financial times. We want people to live independently at home. That's the ultimate objective. I watched my dad die just before Christmas in a hospital bed, and actually he'd have been better off at home, really. Dignity, independence, that ability to have those last few years and moments at home is something that I think we all seek. And when we talk about giving people iPads and discharging them from hospitals, in many cases that can work really well. I was speaking to the chairman of the Health Scrutiny Committee a moment ago, who said that there are 75 people in virtual wards across Staffordshire able to live at home, monitored very carefully through health service colleagues, and I think that's a good thing. Dr. Johnny McMahon talked about telemetry and being able to monitor people's heart rhythms in real time at home in a setting that they're familiar with, not surrounded by people with white coats, and I think that's a good thing. Councillor Yates, welcome to Staffordshire County Council, and thank you for putting that question in about the money for school meals. The information I have is that we have got a ring-fence grant. It comes directly from government to us. We have to passport it through, and the total amount that I've got is, I think for the Holidays, Activities and Food Programme is £12 million, and the Holidays School Fund is £2.3 million per year. Yes, I'm looking at the portfolio holder just to check. So hopefully that provides you with the answer that you are looking for. Before I close out, I would also like to thank all the members of the team who've worked so hard on this, and Councillor Parry, Mike Sutherland, and particularly to Councillor Greatorex and his committee, who don't give us an easy ride at all. Despite the fact he's supposed to be on our team, he makes our lives very difficult indeed, scrutinising those budgets and making sure the money is well spent. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to conclude my comments. Councillor Parry did an excellent opening speech, and I think portfolio holders have dealt with, in turn, aspects of their portfolio as relevant. And, Mr. Chairman, I commend the budget to the Council.
Thank you, Leader. I will now ask the Chief Executive to take a name vote on the recommendations before the Council. I would once again remind members that under Section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992, if they are 2 months or more in arrears of the council tax, it's an offence for them to vote on the budget. Members are also required to disclose at this meeting the fact that this section applies to them. Mr. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chairman. If members could answer for or against when I call out your name, I'm very grateful. Jack Abrahams. Arshad Afsar. Charlotte Atkins. Philip Atkins. Jill Burnett. Tina Clements. Richard Cox. Mike Davies. Mark DeVille. Janet Eagland. Anne Edgler. Keith Flunder. Colin Greatorex. Philippa Hayden. Jill Keith. Phil Hewitt. Jill Hood. Derek Huckfield. Philip Hudson. Saeed Hussain. Graham Hutton. Thomas J. Peter Kruszkonic. Julia Jessel, sorry. Sorry, miss. Thank you for that. Tom Loughborough Rudd. Johnny McMahon. Paul Northcott. Jeremy Oates. Gillian Pardisi. Ian Parry. Jeremy Pert. Robert Pritchard. James Salisbury. Not here. Janice Sylvester Hall. David Smith. Paul Snape. Robert Spencer. Mike Sutherland. Mark Sutton. Stephen Sweeney. Simon Tagg. Samantha Tomlinson. Carolyn Trowbridge. Ross Ward. Jill Waring. Alan White. Philip White. Mike Wilcox. Bernard Williams. David Williams. Victoria Wilson. Mark Winnington. Mike Worthington. And Nigel Yates. Mr. Chairman, the results of the vote are for 48 votes, against 0, abstentions 5.
Thank you. Councillor Parry, your budget has been accepted and passed by this council. Before I continue with the leader's statement, I'd just like to say we're not going to have a break today. If you need a comfort break or you wish to bring a drink in, please feel free to do so. Statement to lead of the Council. Councillor Alan White, will you move consideration of the statement, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I move consideration of the leader's statement, I just want to reflect on the look of utter horror as the Chief Executive approached Councillor Kruszkonic's name. Nearly made it, but not quite. But I move consideration of the leader's statement.
Okay. Councillor Charlotte Atkins, is your the only name listed currently?
Yes, I just wanted to come in on paragraph 1, adult learning disability provider services. And although any investment in adult learning disability services is welcome, it is clear that this is long overdue. I mean, we've made these investments in order to meet the basic Care Quality Commission standards, and that's really not good enough. At best, it's a short-term fix. So it is vital that we develop more building-based facilities for adults with learning disabilities, and they have to be up to a standard where they can live with dignity and with some independence. We're going to have more and more people with learning disabilities outliving their parental carers or their family carers, and it's absolutely vital that we have facilities for them to continue to live a meaningful life. So what I'm asking is, when is the County Council planning to develop more appropriate accommodation, which is up to standard, for these people with learning disabilities who have a right to expect a decent life?
Thank you. Of course, we are debating item number 1, adult learning disability provider services. So thank you, Councillor Atkins. As nobody else has called to speak, does Councillor Julie Jesser like to speak, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. And I thank Councillor Atkins for acknowledging the fact that we are making investments. These buildings are people's homes, and many of them have lived in them for a good number of years. And it is right and proper that we bring the standards up, we bring more ensuite rooms. You know, we all expect, and these people are entitled to expect the better standards, which are the norm nowadays. One of the complications that we have is, of course, the regulations by the CQC rather make it extremely difficult for us. If we provide new provision, new buildings, the maximum number of residents is 6. Some of these people have been living together almost as an extended family for most of their lives, and to be splitting them up would be, in many respects, quite cruel. So there are restrictions that the CQC stick to rigidly. I have to say, on a personal basis, I've yet to understand the logic as to why the CQC are quite happy for care homes to be 60, 70 residents, but people with learning disabilities, they stick rigidly to 6. With Hawthorne House, because of the layout of the buildings, we are able to, within our existing registration, do a significant refurbishment and re-provision. So I think it is right and proper that the authority invests in this service, and we continue to do so. Also, in terms of day provision, respite care, we are being innovative and more flexible to improve that service. And I think this dispels the comments that have been made earlier. It's about cuts. We are not making cuts. We are doing things in a different way. We are investing. I've said to this authority on more than one occasion, we have an increasing demand on social care because of the ageing population. We've known about this for 40, 50 years. And to start making political points, no government has got this one cracked. But this authority will invest money to improve the standards of the service we provide, but also to improve the efficiency with which we provide it. And that, I can give assurances that all the Cabinet members, the whole of this Council, we will endeavour to continue to improve our efficiency and make sure that the money we spend, taxpayers' money, is spent wisely. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2, Homes for Ukraine. Councillor Mrs Atkins.
Sorry, me again. First of all, I want to congratulate all the hosts for their generosity in opening up their homes to Ukrainians fleeing conflict. But many hosts within the Staffordshire Moorlands feel very let down by the County Council. There's no mention of the importance of transport within the Cabinet paper. And that, of course, is an absolutely key issue for families living in quite isolated villages within the moorlands, and I know that Councillor Heath will be aware of that. There's an emphasis in the paper on empowering families to integrate into British culture and the community of Staffordshire, and on preparation for future independence. But if there's no help with transport costs, then it means that it's very difficult for Ukrainians to get together in town centres, to get to school. And for instance, in Staffordshire Moorlands, there's absolutely no language teaching in a class-based facility. Yet, and this has been mentioned to me by the campaign, or rather the group that is based in Leek, at the same time, we're talking about spending thousands of pounds on staff costs. And I'm delighted we're going to have staff who are going to be looking after these hosts. But can I assume that when we have these staff up and running, that the support offered to families in the moorlands will improve? Because at the moment, they feel pretty much abandoned. And in that situation, family generosity may break down. And so I'm appealing to the County Council to give more support to those families that are struggling to get their Ukrainian guests together in locations where they can support each other, learn languages and so on. Because at the moment, there's a lot of isolation and real concern about obviously what's happening in Ukraine at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Victoria Wilson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members. And can I just start by congratulating the member over there for his successful election. Thank you. Councillor Yates, yes, thank you. I was expecting another name, sorry. So this month, as you probably know, marks a year now since the terrible illegal war in Ukraine. In that time, this county has welcomed around 800 Ukrainian family members. So I'd like to echo Mrs. Atkins' comments, just thanking all of the sponsors who've really welcomed those people with open arms. And I'd also like to thank the guests themselves, because they've actually entirely immersed themselves into the local community and Staffordshire County life. So as fully fledged Staffordshire citizens, they now enjoy what all residents can enjoy where that's appropriate. So if a resident is eligible for a bus pass, they'll receive a bus pass. If they can work and the opportunity presents itself, and as you know, unemployment is extremely low in this county, the work is there. If they can get the job, they can have the job. And I know that my colleague actually was very, very helpful to a sponsor and a family that managed to get a really good job, and that's happening all over the county. They're also receiving help with health, lots of health support, and they're also receiving health support actually within the community itself, and that's what I'm all about, is empowering communities to look after themselves and each other. Our guests are also benefiting from English lessons through ESOL. We're providing that training in Burton, in Stafford and in Tamworth, as well as virtually online. Unfortunately, there isn't a great deal of take-up on the online offer, but also we're offering that elsewhere where necessary. So if there are gaps around the county, particularly as been mentioned in the Moorlands, I'd like to know more about that, because we can address that. We have an absolutely amazing team working for us and helping us with this complete project. But the team is already under immense pressure. The team already looks after, and I'll have to list this, children's public health, visitor school nurses, children's centres, family hubs, early years provision, children and families performance, children's social care placement teams, safeguarding board support teams, household support fund, admin support for household support fund funding, and on top of that, all asylum seekers that have come into this county. They've had to look after all of them, and that includes the Afghanis. And now, of course, we've got these 800 Ukrainian people coming in as well. And so it makes perfect sense for us to have a new team which will comprise of 16 staff who will look after those 800 people. It's a really, really big ask, but they're doing an absolutely phenomenal job. Now, we've accepted that sponsors weren't necessarily expecting to have their guests in the homes for this period of time, and government has actually recognised that. So government has agreed that for anyone that's in accommodation for more than 12 months, they will receive, and the sponsors will receive an increase, and it will go up to £500 per month. The whole scheme is extended for a total of 3 years. But we really, really do hope, very, very sincerely and fervently, that before too long, Putin's illegal war in Ukraine will be finished, and all of these guests will be able to have a safe journey back to their country and their loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3, review of older people's nursing home capacity and demand. Councillor Mark Willington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This sort of segues on from what we've been talking about in the budget discussion we've had earlier. In terms of older people, it's incredibly important, as Alan said, that wherever possible we try and keep them at home where they're comfortable, where they feel safe, and not in a hospital, being woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning because the next door bed's snoring or whatever else happens. And I've been with my parents, and they don't appreciate that so much. And I feel sorry that earlier it was mentioned by Councillor Pardesi that iPads and technology are a bad thing. We've used that sort of technology at Nexus, and I know that the virtual work that's being done with iPad, if they can fix a tractor with an iPad, surely you can look after an older person with an iPad, as far as I'm concerned. And that sounds a bit of a weird choice, but they can sit in the office and fix tractors now on iPads, so surely monitoring heartbeats is not too difficult. We talk about Ukraine as well, and again, this all feeds into not having any money, extra money to spend. I know as a businessman the effect that the war has had on prices, the effect on fuel prices, the effect on food. Again, I'm a food producer. As we go forwards, this is not going to get better in the short term. Come the spring, and there will be a spring offensive because the Russians don't just sort of roll over and let these things happen. If they attack Odessa again, the food prices will go up even more, as will fuel prices. And that has a knock-on effect on all of us in the cost of living, and particularly in this case, on social care and health, because if people need more money, they need more wages, we need to look after our carers more. And Julie's already said that we need to pay these wonderful people more money for looking after our older people, our vulnerable parents, our neighbours and such like. So really important. But in terms of this item here, the 2 recommendations around Brackenhouse and Meadow Rise, they've been sort of taken on by Nexus to sort of try and take some of the load off the County Council. And we're doing this review as we go forwards. I've already spoken to Julia briefly. We need to make sure that whatever we do as we go forwards is good, it's gold standard, but we also need to make sure that we don't impact on the services we've got at the moment. So I'm pleased this is happening, and I'm pleased that we can all work together on this one. And it is important we look after our most vulnerable. That's why we're here. Thank you.
I personally know that the IT system works. I have a monitoring plant in my chest. I have a machine by my bed which sends everything to the iCloud every night. And if things are wrong, I get a phone call, so I know it works. It saves me having to go into hospital. It saves waiting times, so it does work. Come to Mrs. Charlotte Atkins, please.
So good of you, Mr. Chairman, to trial this arrangement.
It's not a trial, it's something that's been working for many years, and it does work.
I realise that. But it's good that you shared your personal experience. Obviously, people want to stay at home as long as they possibly can. But access to good quality and affordable nursing care homes is absolutely vital. Now, in Leek, we have Hen Cloud, which is a totally luxurious nursing home. But the cost of that is up to £1,200 a week. And clearly that's well above the County Council's budget and well above most other people's budget as well, although it is a fantastic facility. So what is being done to develop affordable nursing home care in the north of the county? And could I refer the Cabinet member to the site which was abandoned many years ago on the Mount in Leek for an absolutely perfect place to have a good nursing or dementia care centre. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Julia Jessel.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And can I thank Councillor Winnington for his remarks and say that I certainly am very well aware of the huge impact that Nexus has had on the services that we deliver, and that there is a danger of asking them to take on too much too soon. But working very closely with them and potentially with other partners, because with nursing home care, the difficulty that the sector, whether it's a private sector, whether it's our arm's length organisation, is actually securing professional nursing staff. And I think, again, we need to be working with our NHS partners, and I'll come on to workforce strategy at a later date, as to how we can overcome those difficulties. But what we have done here is go about this in a methodical, scientific way. We've assessed what the current provision is across the county, what is in the pipeline, as those of you who are on districts and boroughs know that there are planning applications either in the process of being determining or have been determined, and identify what the needs are across the county, and then have an accurate assessment of where those gaps are. So it isn't a matter of, who wants to champion what in their area. It's a matter of having that sound scientific basis of where are the priority areas, where those gaps are. And it was decided in the first instance to look at Bracken House and Meadowrith, to potentially extend them and to provide more nursing home provision, particularly in Tamworth, which is one of the areas where there is a shortfall. I thank members and yourself, Chairman, for identifying the positive impact of IT. And actually, we've been championing and piloting certain pieces of IT kit. One is the Rita system, which is an iPad, which actually has been piloted in care homes. The information on it is either standard or people can have their own favourite music loaded into it, their photographs, family memories. But it's been found so beneficial to people with dementia that actually they require less one-to-one care, they require less medication because they're calmer. The impact of some of these pieces of kit is actually quite astounding. And I don't think we should be afraid to trial them. And I think with these two homes, there is an opportunity for us to showcase what is possible and to actually encourage other providers of nursing home care to actually get into the 21st century, because some of them are a little bit behind, even if it's in their administrative systems. So we are aware of the huge opportunities we have with Nexus, But I do recognise, and the two Marks are forever telling me, you know, don't overload them, and we do understand that. But in terms of the report also says that we'll be looking at other areas, and it's not just the county council potentially providing nursing home care, but stimulating the market, acting as a catalyst to encourage other developments. We are not the sole providers, and actually there are some very good nursing homes out there. The other thing is that, of course, we're moving to block-booked beds. Now, I can be hard-nosed and fairly commercial in my ways, but recognise that actually you can get more out of a system if you work in partnership. And actually working with private providers, giving them greater certainty of the block-booked bed system is actually beginning to work. Plus, it enables us, an authority, to negotiate a very competitive price for those beds. So this is where we challenge our current way of doing business and look to the future. So I think this is a real way forward. All this is subject to a business case, which comes back to our financial controls. The business cases have to stack up, but I can recommend this report. And as I say, I once again am very appreciative of all the hard work that Nexus have done, particularly in the last 2 years, and I'm sure will continue to do and continue to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4, delivering a future vision for the countryside estate. Councillor Victoria Wilson.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm delighted to bring this item to the Council this morning. As you all know, Staffordshire County Council owns a huge country estate, including 6 main country parks, a suite of local sites and 3 greenways covering an area of 2,280 hectares. Now, as you all know, we have a green thread running through absolutely every single thing we do at this council, and this project that we're putting forward here is going to deliver really great climate change initiatives. We're going to support net carbon zero. We're going to really super green the service. So I'm absolutely delighted to bring this report to the council this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Willington, please.
This will be the last time I stand up, Chairman, so apologies to the council. The greenways and chase waters, which I've had a lot of experience of them in the past, but the one that really concerns me and I'm incredibly proud of is the Stafford to Newport Greenway. Now, I was elected in 2005. At that point, I think there's probably 3 miles you could actually travel down before you got bogged down. It's now 12.5 miles long. It connects with Telford and Reeking at Newport. It connects with Docksey. It's incredibly important. But the reason that I'm bringing this up and on this item in particular is that I agree entirely with the green agenda you've put in here, but you've missed or gone back on what we did, a lot of work in terms of benefit cost ratios on the health side. We actually costed out what these parks and greenways were contributing. People walking up and down, and they do take ownership. And that's the other thing I'm sure Victoria's found. You try and change something now that we've established these greenways and parks, and there's hell up because people own them. They're theirs. It's our greenway. It's actually owned by the county council, and it's a permissive way, but it's owned by those communities. And all the way along the route, they're doing volunteer work, and that's the other bit. But it's incredibly important, and I just hope that this is added into this vision, is how important the health benefits are. There's people going out there, even in wheelchairs and powered wheelchairs, enjoying life, enjoying fresh air, feeling better. And when they feel better and they're looking after themselves and they're moving around, they're not costing the health service because they're looking after themselves. So please, in your vision, make sure that you give priority to the health side. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nigel Yates, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I'd like to start by saying two things. One, I do like a good vision. And secondly, I agree completely with what Councillor Winnington has just said. One of the things which I wanted to start off by saying is don't underestimate the benefit of physical health as well as mental health on these open spaces and country parks. What COVID showed was how important these are, and how the community with the lockdowns and only being able to exercise once a day at the start, if you remember that, all the country parks, all the footpaths, whether it be the Biddulph Alleyway up in, obviously Biddulph, whether it be Greenway Country Park, which is a Staffordshire County Council one, it just showed how much they are treasured and how much they are used. And one plea which I want to make is that we don't put any unnecessary obstacles in the way of their use. There has been comment and overture about parking spaces and certain parking restrictions and things like that. We want to encourage people. We don't want to put a financial excuse and a financial burden for people not to go out there and benefit their own physical health and not understate the mental health. Certainly, the other thing is that, again, associated with what Councillor Winnington just said, is the local community engagement. I think any works, any visions which we try to execute should be done in complete consultation, not only with the borough and district councils, but with the parish councils as well. It's the parish councils who feel the closest ownership on these sites. And I'm sure, and I can certainly speak for the Staffordshire Moorlands and my part of the Staffordshire Moorlands, that they'd be more than willing to engage in a discussion to how to plan for enhancing biodiversity, enhancing tree planting, enhancing the amenity use for our residents. And one other thing which I want to add, which isn't in there, you're talking about a vision for the county estates. You haven't mentioned the county farms. Now, I know they're sort of, you know, tenanted and occupied by certain things, but one thing which I noticed living in a close urban area with a lot of rural, a lot of farms around, there is a lot of spare and feral and unfarmable space, sharp ravines and valleys and things within these farmlands, and perhaps they should always be noted and prioritised as increasing bioconnectivity and increasing tree planting and things. And one thing about tree planting, we've got an awful long way to go, because certainly in the Staffordshire Moorlands area, we've removed so many trees with ash dieback that we're rushing to stand still, never mind to improve where we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mike Wilcox, please.
For visitors and residents of Burntwood, we have, I think, one of the jewels in the crown of Staffordshire in Chasewater Country Park, in a picturesque countryside setting covering over 360 hectares of land, including some 90 hectares of water. It's a magnet for bird watchers, walkers, runners and cyclists, and even boasts a steam train ride. But like many facilities such as this, it has also witnessed a real resurgence in popularity during and after COVID. Unfortunately, the offer there has become somewhat tired over years, and the demand for move has not changed that visitors expect from such a venue as this. This future vision for the countryside estate is exactly what is needed for Chasewater, and it will place such things as accessibility, the offer there of catering, refurbishment of equipment, as well as the nature recovery work is just what is needed. All this will demonstrate our commitment as a county council to promote healthy communities and exercise. I'm really pleased and thank the Cabinet member, Victoria Wilson, for her vision and look forward to seeing this come to fruition in the near future. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Jill Heath, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm very pleased that the county farms were not included in this. The county farms estate is a very valuable asset to our county. Farming is an ageing generation, a lot of older farmers, and we need a younger input. And the county farms provides this for young people who wouldn't otherwise be able to get into the industry. We're a small island, we're going smaller, we have more and more demands, but everyone needs food. And long may the county, I've stood up and championed the county farms before in this chamber, and I will continue to do so as long as I've got breath in my body, because I think they are a very valuable asset. And please, please leave them as they are. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Simon Tagg, please.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I'd like to commend the vision that the portfolio put forward on these country park estates. And up in Newcastle, we have the Apedale Country Park, which is a great facility for local people, and also as a community facility as well, because obviously the Mining Museum and also the railway, Apedale Railway, are based there and bring hundreds of people into that space. And I've got a visitor centre and a museum. So working with communities on these sites is really important to make them open to everybody. I think also with my portfolio in mind, obviously these country estate parks are a great, as has already been said by Mr Yates, a way of nature recovery, biodiversity, and bringing back nature on the sites which we have. So I commend that. And as you said, portfolio, the main part of this is to contribute towards that re-nature of Staffordshire and also helping us to support our net carbon goals. Thank you. Reduction goals.
Councillor Philip White, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I thought particularly given the time of year with the snowdrops emerging and hopefully the weather improving soon, that I should just give a brief mention as Chairman of Enjoy Staffordshire to how important our country parks are as part of our tourism offer in the county. We are incredibly lucky in terms of the attractions that we have, but the overarching attraction is that green and pleasant land, and that countryside estate is such an important part of that. My family were at Shugborough at the weekend, and we had a lovely walk from the Canalside Cafe just out of the estate in one direction, down through Shugborough and onto Cannock Chase. And our parts of that jigsaw puzzle are incredibly important. I'm really pleased to see the proposals here for investing in the facilities for visitors, whether they're local or whether they're from further afield as part of this. It's really important that we make sure that our local residents are able to enjoy these sites appropriately with the impact of their use being offset, but also that we're attracting other people here to enjoy our county and spend their money here. So thank you very much, Councillor Wilson.
Councillor Leader, please.
Thank you, Mr Chairman, and thank you for all the comments, and particularly to Councillor Wilson for bringing this vision forward. It's always one of the limitations of the Leader's statement is that it only gives you a flavour of what's going on behind the scenes. And in order to help you out with that, what we normally do is put the reference point as part of the Leader's statement. So it says here, Cabinet, 14th of December. You can go to the Cabinet papers for the 14th of December and get more details about the report. And contained in that report, Councillor Yates, you'll see reference to physical health and mental health. It is really, really important. And Councillor Dr. Johnny McMahon has been a big advocate of people getting out, getting into some green space, because it has a massive impact on people's mental health. Doing a bit of exercise is really, really important. And I'm a big fan of exercising, particularly in chase water at the Staffordshire Ironman when I swim up and down it several dozen times. The work that we do, I just want to commend the work we do with our district and borough colleagues on parks and open spaces. It's not purely a county council thing, this. It's in partnership with those districts and boroughs across the county of Staffordshire. We couldn't do it without them. And I just want to reference Councillor Tagg's work through his sustainability board, which he'll be referencing shortly, that we're pulling together in the same direction to make sure that we keep those places vibrant and that we encourage people to use them as much as possible. Councillor Yates, whenever there is a reference to farms, you will always get either Councillor Heath, Councillor Atkins, or Dr. Winnington, our resident tractor doctor, standing up to defend the situation. So just be prepared. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Item 5, framework agreements. Councillor DeVille, please.
Chairman, very, very many thanks. And Chairman, in welcoming Mr Yates to the Chamber today, I strongly welcome his comments around the previous item, around the green space in Staffordshire. And I know that Mr Yates shares my passion for the green space, provision of play areas and sports facilities in the Staffordshire Mullins. So welcome, Mr Yates. And I'm delighted, Chairman, that Leaders included this item in his statement today. It's really, really important. Of course, colleagues, the assets and the estate around this county council is considerable. At the same time, to maintain that estate and maintain that it continues to be fit for purpose, there's a massive amount of work and contracts and contract work that's required around those assets. And of course, what goes alongside a considerable number of contracts is a considerable amount of money, Chairman. Massive amount of expenditure. For instance, it says in the report, purchase of tarmac alone, and that's not tarmac to repair the roads of Staffordshire. It's tarmac that repairs footways, playgrounds in schools, etc. That totals £6.5 million. So we're really talking a large amount of money here, Chairman. It's massively important. And it's right that these frameworks should formalise the expenditure of this large amount of money. The frameworks ensure that we always achieve very best value for the Staffordshire taxpayer. I think increasingly important, Chairman, these frameworks are generating more partnership working with our borough and district partners, emergency services, so that we can work with those organisations and achieve the benefits of economies of scale. So that's really important. And I think the most important aspect of these frameworks, and I've mentioned it before, is to really encourage local companies to bid for these works, to bid for these contracts. And we've got a really successful track record, Chairman, in awarding contracts to local firms. Not exclusively, but they are vastly, mostly local firms within Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent that carry out the works. So really, the works within this framework work closely and denote really the objectives, the corporate objectives of this council, to offer very, very best value, to offer best service, and to look after and generate the local economy.
Thank you. Staffordshire means back to business. Councillor Syed Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The bullet point to the claimant of universal credit, I believe. Mr. Chairman, can I ask the Cabinet member what he thinks, what's the key reason in increasing number of the claimants? And does he agree with me? We need to foster more entrepreneurial cultures to tackle this problem in the future as well. So what more needs to be done to encourage people to be leaning towards getting more businesses rather than just looking for the jobs or something? Secondly, Mr. Chairman, on the last paragraph, Cabinet member also mentioned some innovative projects and innovative projects within the county is coming on. Could you please help us, giving us some ideas which areas he is thinking of in the future and what sort of projects in his mind? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nigel Yates, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm sorry you keep standing up. I've got 2 years to catch up on. There's only a few of us, so just bear with me if you don't mind. I'd like you to refer to paragraph 3, which basically says how the councillors continue to play a key role in developing local plans across Staffordshire. We have got a little bit of an issue in Biddulph, I have to say, with the adoption of Albion Way. Albion Way was done as a spur when Meadows Way was developed in the early 2000s. At the moment, it's an unadopted road. And it's actually accessing some land which is owned by Staffordshire Moorlands District Council, which is earmarked for mixed-use development. And in Biddulph, having a site for mixed-use development is extremely important because we haven't currently got one. The previous site, Victoria Business Park, sorry, Councillor DeVille, I couldn't go along without mentioning Victoria Business Park, is completely locked out and blocked up now. We've got pressure of Biddulph becoming a suburb and commuter town. Tunstall has developed the Tunstall Arrow development, which is a fantastic site of small units. Entrepreneurs are starting up there. You're developing the Chatley Valley site, which is only 4.5 to 5 miles away, so there's displacement to the Chatley Valley. Congleton and Cheshire East have just built a bypass and they're surrounded by houses and industrial estates. So Biddulph is running the risk of having our entrepreneurs and our young people being drawn out and draining to these areas. So it's very important that we have no obstacles in the way to delivering the mixed-use sites upon the local plan. And Staffordshire County Council can put an input in that by adopting that small section, which is Albion Way. And that is a minor thing to ask for, but a very important key to get these sites actually delivered and keep Biddulph's entrepreneurs within Biddulph. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor David Smith, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, we may all have our own views about HS2 and what it's doing in Staffordshire. But putting those to one side, we might look at what the benefits are, particularly that they are now working with our universities, that they are taking on apprentices, which is something that we as a county would be very much supportive of. They've awarded 23 projects so far in Staffordshire, and those are worth 1.4 million. But in particular, they've spent 110 million on local businesses, 3/4 of which are small and medium-sized enterprises. So we've got lots of good news of things going on. Whatever you feel about HS2, it's at least spending some money with us. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Afsar, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a comment on point 1 of the chapter. Fair and growth-based approach to business rates supports jobs and investment. Will the Council take into consideration beginning a survey across the county in order to address unfairness in business rates and find a permanent solution to this problem? Many small and medium-sized businesses suffer from unfair business rates year after year, which has a knock-on effect on job creation and economic growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Philip Atkins, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to welcome the Prime Minister having a specific Minister, Secretary of State for Business and Trade. I think that's a good step forward. This is a really complex subject, and we can all go on about things in our patch that we want doing and everything else. But I'm just going to talk about 3 things, because 3 is enough. One is there are certain trades which, I noticed we've got 14,640 claimants at a time when there's more jobs available than there are claimants. And the hospitality trade in particular has been suffering very, very deeply. A lack of chefs, believe it or not. Quite often you go in and they haven't got enough chefs. They haven't got enough staff to work behind the bars. So there is something that can be done there about independent career guidance and helping people. Have you ever thought about doing this? And there's going to be an awful lot of people who took early retirement after COVID are going to be thinking, I can't make do on what I'm earning now. Well, think about going back in to another trade. I happen to be a governor at South Staffordshire College, and there's some good news coming in Tamworth soon about a new set of circumstances there. And Robertson have got record numbers of people going into the land-based industry. So I know that people are doing the FE, certainly on adult and everything else. But there's other things that the council can help with. And I noticed, I went to a Derby 23 forum about 2 weeks ago when we were talking about, we were told about some exciting developments on light railways in cities. Coventry's got a lightweight railway system with a new type of under-road structure, which means that you don't have to dig into the utilities. And believe it or not, these sleepers are being made in Stoke-on-Trent. So that will be made, and the cost per kilometre is about 1/3 or 1/4 of what traditional tram systems have been. They're testing it at the moment at Coventry to see if lorries can drive over it and it won't crack the rails, which is what the problem is with the metro. They never actually worked out the depth and the the stuff that's going on with that. So I think you've got to be really awake to innovative type projects that are coming along, and then look at them not just in a benefit cost ratio, but also in value for money, because these things give more jobs, more opportunities and everything else. But you've got a headache coming down the line. And National Grid, when they announced that they were going to pay people back if they didn't use electricity at certain times of the day, is nothing about saving money for the householder. It's the National Grid is not fit for purpose. I think I've told it before in this meeting, but an electric car at 7 kVA and a ground source heat pump at 12 kVA means that most houses, if not 90%, haven't got an electric system that can cope with the power that is needed. Never mind cables across pavements, there isn't the power there. And the example that was used at the National Grid stakeholders meeting was a service station with a transformer on a pole. Will need a transformer about half the size of this chamber when it's got 50 cars pulled up and want a rapid charge. But at Derby 23, there was a speaker there from the Rail Forum who pointed out that electric railways are the way forward for moving logistics around the country, and I know the Chief Executive will like this. They're moving a huge amount around. East Midlands Gateway is going to be doubled in size. JCB are already using about most of the capacity there of shipping stuff in. Aluminium chassis and everything else for Jaguar and Land Rover come on a rail transport under the tunnel regularly, almost every day. There's 40% of the traffic freight on it is consumables, but you need electric vehicles to do short journeys in and out. So it isn't one solution. There's numerous solutions to these, meaning back to business. And I think Staffordshire, heart of the country, has got a really strong part to play in the manufacturing and solutions that this country needs to generate the wealth that we need both regionally, nationally, and for us, locally. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor David Williams, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just thought I'd clarify a situation and welcome Councillor Yates personally to the Council Chamber. When developers build roads, we won't adopt them until they're up to standard. So why is that the developer builds the road, they will then offer them to the council. They must have the right licences and make sure the right infrastructure is put in place, that the road quality and the path quality is up to standard. Then we will look to adopt them, and that will mean that with the taxpayers now got an extra burden of that stretch of road for a considerable piece of time. So that's why these roads don't get adopted straight away. And that's something that you can quite easily work with your own community highways team. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Philip White, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So it's always good to hear the debate on these economy items. We've got a lot of very engaged and informed members in the room, and my goodness, have we got a busy economy here, which is partly down to our geography at the heart of the country, but also down to the quality of the businesses and the people that we have in our part of the world. Dealing with some of the specific questions that have been asked by members, Councillor Hussain has left for a moment, so I'll try and leave his until the end when he comes back. Councillor Yates, Councillor Williams has been kind enough to answer the technical question around the adoptions process. What I'm more than happy to do is to engage with Staffordshire Moorlands District Council about that site and see what we might be able to do collectively to bring that mixed-use development forward. You're absolutely right. We do need to make sure that all of our towns have a fair opportunity to enjoy those benefits, and I'm sure there are lots of enterprising people and businesses in Biddulph who would benefit from that, so we'll be very happy to do that. In terms of HS2, this council opposed HS2 for reasons that we're all well aware of, but we are determined to extract every ounce of benefit for our people from that new railway line. And it's good to hear a report back in terms of some of the immediate benefits that are coming to businesses in our area. And we will keep on turning the screw in terms of extracting those benefits where we can. Councillor Hussain has returned, so I'll come to his questions now. In terms of the claimant rate, although the information that we receive doesn't track the destinations that particular people have come from into being claimants, the business intelligence that we gather is that it is those increases, although small, and although we remain well below the regional and national averages for unemployment, they do come principally in areas such as hospitality and retail, where businesses are feeling the pressure in terms of their costs. And it's really important that we return those people to work, both by helping those businesses to weather the storm, but also through the initiatives that we have in terms of linking people to the many vacancies that are there. We know that we have far more vacancies in Staffordshire than people, but sometimes the missing element is the skills to do the job that's available. So our jobs brokerage scheme, which has just been rolled out, we recruited the last person to work as a jobs broker in that only in the last few weeks. That is our local solution to that, sitting between DWP and employers locally and recruitment businesses locally, which links local jobs to local people, but crucially also links them with a skills package where they need it. So we are quite active in terms of that, but we're always keen to have new ideas in terms of other things we might be doing. So please speak to me if you have any other input in terms of that. And I'm glad that you mentioned innovation, and Councillor Atkins did as well. One of our big challenges in Staffordshire is increasing our productivity, and one of the best drivers of that is harnessing innovation. We're about to publish our economic strategy for 2023 to 2030. One of the key strands in that, one of the priorities, is innovation, and that is something that we already spend a lot of our time on, and we will do more of it. He asked for specific examples. So we work very closely with our universities in terms of their innovation activities and commercialising the research that they have. We have our sort of flag planted firmly in the ground at Keele Innovation Park in terms of actually providing space for that. And I'm very proud, for example, that one of the tenants there is Cobra Biologics, one of the businesses that produced the vaccine that's helped keep us all safe over the last couple of years from the effects of COVID. And we are also working, there's a line item in the oral update about the Council's intention to contribute to a piece of work to consider further locations for strategic employment sites around the county. That has a large innovation element to it. So some of that is around developing innovation centres, but also we are interested in whether there is the possibility for a specific science park in Staffordshire. The other thing that I will mention very briefly is our startup programme. We are open in terms of the types of businesses that come through that programme, where we've trained hundreds of potential entrepreneurs and supported 250 startup businesses directly. But we do within that have a very strong innovation strand, so encouraging and drawing out innovative businesses and commercialising them, because often innovation is a great idea, but the commercial bit is the bit you need to add in. So we're already very active in that. And I think the increase in startups in the county, so 1,000 more startups in the last year, and up to the national average for the first time, shows how successfully we're delivering that. So there's a few things, but always happy to talk about it more.
Thank you. Health and Care Winter Update. Councillor Anne Edgeler, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm delighted to announce the amount of spending for mental health services within Staffordshire. This comes on the back of having launched the Mental Health Covenant, of which Staffordshire County Council is part of. I would like, with your permission, Chairman, to read a letter received by Stafford MP Theo Clark from the Health Minister, Maria Caulfield. Is that okay?
You have my permission.
Thank you very much. Dear Theo, I'm writing to congratulate you on your campaign to improve mental health services in Stafford and to update you on recent funding for mental health crisis response infrastructure in your area. I recognise your work to champion the needs of your constituents over the last 3 years and to highlight the range of services available to support their mental health and well-being. Your collaboration with local organisations through Stafford Mental Health Network and the launch of the Covenant with Midland Partnership NHS Foundation Trust has helped to challenge the stigma associated with mental health problems. I'm delighted that Stafford is receiving £3.15 million for a crisis assessment centre at St George's Hospital. The centre will provide urgent and emergency mental health care services for all ages, bringing together assessment facilities with a health-based places for safety, in brackets, section 136 suite. Your constituents will also benefit from £1.56 million for a project, Chrysalis, at Harplands Hospital in Stoke-on-Trent. This will create a new 15-bed adult mental health inpatient ward. In addition, £821,000 has been allocated for a new crisis cafe in Stafford and Stoke-on-Trent integrated care system area. This funding is part of £150 million of investment in national health, mental health, urgent and emergency services across England. It includes £7 million for up to 100 specialised mental health ambulances to take staff directly to patients in need of emergency care and provide a calmer environment for patients to be assessed with space for family and friends to accompany them. Together, these facilities will help to ensure patients experiencing a mental health crisis receive the care they need in appropriate settings while freeing up staff availability within the A&E departments. And that was signed by Maria Caulfield MP, Health Minister. And can I say, I'm pleased for everyone that this government is taking mental health seriously and recognising that more services are needed to combat this dreadful illness. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Jill Hood, please.
Chairman. I'd like you to just note the top paragraph on page 139, which talks about hospital discharges and support for those residents who need adult social care. I think this is a good and timely way for me to bring to all of your attention the Royal Stoke Hospital, where I have been visiting on a regular basis. And I don't think we need to worry about discharging patients when they need to be discharged, because the food is so disgusting there that I'm sure they clamour to get out. I have been visiting an elderly gentleman now for just over 3 weeks. He's fortunate because his room overlooks the helipad, and when I go, I can look down, a luxury he doesn't have because he can't get out of bed, but I can look down and see the ambulances queuing up. Behind the ambulance queue is the vast area that they're building the new car park, and he jokes with me that I should put my hard hat on and go and help them. But what I'd like this body of members to know is that I've been visiting another gentleman who's been in that hospital, and he was discharged to St George's Hospital here in Stafford. And eventually his wife managed to get him into a care home. I've just received a text message from her which says, "Dear Jill, I got a lovely food parcel last night. Thank you so much." I can't take credit for that food parcel. That food parcel was sent by Safa, who have had to step in because his care is so appallingly bad. His wife was a very jolly lady, and her mental health now is near crisis point. Because he uses the stick to walk, he is now locked in his room because if anyone approaches him, he now feels so threatened that he uses his stick. It's so very sad that the lack of staff in these homes and hospitals is almost encouraging a couldn't care less about our residents. And it makes me so sad. I was at the Stoke Hospital and the food tray came. It was late. As I say, he's by the helipad, so I imagine he's the absolute last ward and very high up. The soup was so cold that you couldn't possibly have eaten it. And I mentioned it to a nurse and I said, "This food is cold." And she said, "Leave it, I'll have it." They are so desperately short-staffed. And I absolutely welcome the extra investment that we are going to be putting into this funding for our social care, because it really is at crisis point. And please, please, I've done mini surveys while I've been downstairs having a coffee, asking people, oh, have you got someone here in hospital? They all speak with the same common voice. The food is disgusting. Please, please, ask your residents when they've got relatives, loved ones, friends in hospital, what's the care like? You'll then get a true picture. And I'm so sorry to have to stand up in front of this council and say this, but I think it's excellent that you can all hear it. And I'd like to thank whoever left the biscuits in the foyer, and I'd like to welcome Councillor Slater. Thank you, Chairman. Yates. Well, I was close. It had got an A, a T and an E. It's nice to meet you.
Thanks to Councillor Hood. Councillor Derry Cookfield, please.
So to you this morning, Mr. Chairman, and I can't believe me ears what people are saying. It's absolutely unreal. We've just had a budget. And all this on 7 is all written down about the budget, about care, about funding, right? Now, the Labour Party have turned round, or the Labour councillors have turned round and abstained, or they've turned round and said they aren't voting for it. And yet here we are in a position, right, where they could have voted, right? And if they'd have voted, right, they'd have supported the recommendations by this council. So at the end of the day, why didn't they support the proposal that was put forward? I mean, we can all stand here and we can all criticise, right? And we can all run down the hospitals and the aftercare and everything that goes on. The people that I've dealt with think it's fantastic, absolutely marvellous at the care, right, that they've had in the homes and that they've had in their own homes. Right? People have had lifts fitted, right, in their own homes so they can be looked after, a part of the family. Absolutely fantastic. And I think before we start criticising, right, we ought to look at what exactly is being done. Nothing, and I won't bother what anybody says, in all my life, and I'm an old man, you can say, in all my life, right, nothing has changed. There's always been bad times. There's always been good times. And I think this is what you have to accept. That somewhere along the line, right, you've got to draw the line and say, we've done everything, and I mean everything that we possibly can. The budget said that today, and that's why I supported it, right? Because of the care, and they're doing every possible thing that they can for these people that need it. Who's to know? I might need it myself in a few years' time. I think I'm on my way out now. But I mean, at the end of the day, right, I think that's how we've got to start looking, right, and start using some common sense. It's all right standing up here and talking and say, you know, all this, that, the other, they should have done this, and I know somebody that suffered, right? How many people can you talk to that haven't? How many people turn around and say, the best time of my life was when I was in hospital? You wouldn't believe it, right? The amount of people say, well, at least it's warm, I'm getting a meal, I aren't getting that at home. And that's, I think, how sometimes you've got to start looking at these things. And there's more to it than meets the eye. And I don't take in everything that everybody says. I remember sitting in that chamber there, up there, Mr. Chairman, and the Labour Party proposal was to shut all the care homes down. I've sat here and I've just listened to the leader of the Labour group, right, turn round and say, I know where there's a piece of land, what we could build one on. Can't believe it. It's just baffling me altogether. They say one thing 1 minute, another thing another minute. As far as I'm concerned, if they make a proposal, they should put it forward in writing. And I've gone all through this. I've looked at the Conservative proposal, right? And I can't find the Labour one. There isn't anything there. But straight as soon as you start, right, they jump up and start pulling it apart. Before you pull it apart, put something forward so it stands both ways. So The leader can have a go at yours, and the leader of yours can have a go at theirs. That's why. But he doesn't want it. So I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chairman, and I think there's a little bit more to it than what people really realise. Thank you very much.
Councillor Charlotte Atkins, please.
Yeah, I'll ignore Councillor Huckfield's comments because I want to focus. And of course, Councillor White will know that I've been talking about that site on the Mount for several years and raised it regularly with the property committee, only to be fobbed off. But the reason I rise now is I want to ask about the numbers, the figures, in paragraph 3 of this section. Is it the case that this 3 million has to be spent by the end of March? If that is the case, what difficulties has that caused? And does that imply that the government thinks that the NHS beds crisis will be resolved by the end of March?
Thank you. Councillor Gillian Padesi, please.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, it's becoming a little tiresome. Where's Labour's alternative then? What do they suggest? Well, Chair, the financial situation we find ourselves in is to a large extent this government's own making through underinvestment and austerity measures. So it's time, sorry, Chair, if I can just finish my sentence.
You'll be able to speak at the point of order, so please sit down for a moment, please, Mrs. Padesi.
Winter update, and I think, Councillor Parry, didn't we do the budget about an hour and a half ago? Yeah.
We're talking about the winter update, so if your question is relevant to that, then please continue.
OK, Chair, so I'll address social care then. A similar issue, the winter care update. We are where we are because of the political choices that have been made, the lack of investment, the austerity packages that we've had to deal with. So this administration needs to acknowledge the situation we're in, own it and sort it.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Willington, please.
Just a very quick one, back again to what Councillor Pardesi just said. It's not the fault of the British government. It's not the fault of our local government. Have you not realised there's something going on in the Ukraine that's pushed all the prices up? That's
we are talking about the
that's why we can't afford anything.
Councillor Willington, we're talking about the health and winter update, please. I've got to be fair with both sides. Thank you. Councillor Julia Jessel, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, it's been quite a far-ranging discussion, and I will try and go through all the points that were raised, perhaps not in order, because I'm going to start with those made by Councillor Huckfield. Words of wisdom. I, like he, have been around for a long time. I can remember inflation at 24–25%. My first mortgage was 15.75%. We've all been through tough times. But the one thing that makes it worse nowadays, I think, is the media. Everything is a crisis. A crisis is Ukraine, a crisis is Turkey and Syria. Those are real crises. Most of us in our lives go through good times, bad. Some of the bad times are really tough. So I think, bless him, there are words of wisdom that he does speak from time to time. Thank you, Councillor Huckfield. In terms of Councillor Atkins's comment about the discharge fund and the £3 million, yes, it does have to be spent by the end of March. This was funding, and I know you made comments in the earlier budget discussion about this £3 million. We did have a very short time scale to put forward our proposals. We will spend it wisely to do even better with discharge, working with care homes, with home care providers and with the NHS to improve the system. But I don't mind rattling a few political cages. And I have written, as Cabinet Member for Health and Care, to the Secretary of State to say that, in my view, there is a better way of spending money, that actually it would be far better to give us a number of years of a budget of which we could do something lasting and something really innovative that makes things better on a sustainable basis. So I have to admit, you and I are probably on a similar wavelength there. I've yet to receive a response, but I have made an offer that if they want to come and visit us, we are a very innovative, forward-looking organisation here. We always, in our strategies, empowering staff, we do that. And I would love the opportunity to have the Secretary of State here. In terms of Councillor Pardaise's comments about the lack of investment, this report highlights what we've been doing, what we've been achieving in terms of working with the NHS, working with all our partners to ensure that we have an effective, efficient discharge system and that the social services that we provide support that so that people can have the care that they need. That statement was made in January. Basically, there were no delays to discharge. You wouldn't believe that from the BBC News, mind you, but that's the situation here in Staffordshire. And I thought it would be interesting for members to know what the situation is as of the beginning of this week, so that I can demonstrate that wasn't a flash in the pan. What we are doing is the culmination of a lot of hard work. And as at the beginning of the week, no one was waiting for social care in any acute hospitals. 3 people were waiting and overdue for social care in NHS community hospitals. They were more complex cases. And no one was waiting and overdue for social care in the NHS temporary discharge to assess care home beds. Many of you, and Councillor Yates may not be fully aware, and I'm happy to do a briefing for him, about Home First, which is the care that is provided by Midlands Partnership Foundation Trust. And in the past, we've used them as provider of last resort because we've had difficulty in home care packages to take over the ongoing care. As of last week, there were 62 hours of the provider of last resort that we had to resort to keep using them for 62 hours per week out of a total of 8,800 hours of the service that's provided. So we're using them as provider of last resort in a very small number of cases. So just so that you're aware, we don't sit and moan about lack of resources. We use our staff, we use our resources in an efficient way, and it's working. Staffordshire is an exception, and we have proved that it works. So I think...
Councillor Jessel, can I ask you now, please, to...
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. Councillor White, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I echo Councillor Jessel's words about your words of wisdom, Derek. Thank you very much indeed. Well put. I think the points about lack of investment in the NHS is misplaced as a result of media swirling around this subject and this constant use of the word crisis. You only need to go to the BMA website, the King's Fund website, and what you'll see is a real terms increase in the amount of investment that the NHS has received. Yes, there are more people coming through the door. Yes, people are living longer, which is a good thing. But people also need to look after themselves during the course of their lives, so they need to use acute services less frequently. To Councillor Hood, I can't speak to the case that you're talking about. It sounds awful. But to bring a case like that to the floor of the Chamber and illustrate one particular point, I think it might be better to raise that directly with the hospital. I'm sure you have done. I'm putting words into your mouth and making assumptions. But you can rest assured that both myself and Councillor Pert will raise it with the relevant senior people in UH&M next time we see them. I've got a meeting with the Integrated Care Board at 5 o'clock this afternoon. I will raise it then. It is a challenge for hospitals to get people out of the door, and that's not because of social services in Staffordshire. I've spoken to each of the 3 chief executives of the acute trusts that serve this county, Burton Derby, Stoke and Wolverhampton, and all of them say there's no problem with the Staffordshire discharges. In fact, I have the benefit of having Dr. Harling sitting right next to me. As we speak right now, there are 0 Staffordshire residents awaiting discharge from a hospital. There are, however, quite a few people in hospital who could go home, but seem to be steadfastly refusing to go. That's not because there isn't a social care package waiting for them. It seems that they're just not wanting to go home. Perhaps it's the food that they're attracted to, Councillor Hood. I don't know. Perhaps it's the food that they're trying to get them out as a consequence. You know, a bit Machiavellian. To Councillor Atkins' point, a point well made, Councillor Atkins, which is the money that we get coming through the door that's got to be spent in a really short period of time, as Councillor Jessel points out, and Councillor Parry points out regularly. It's not a good way of spending money at all. Local authorities, the NHS needs to be able to plan to spend the money so it's spent efficiently and effectively in pursuit of the objectives for which it is set up for, not bashing it out the door as fast as humanly possible, because the net result of that, of course, is it destabilises the social care market. It makes it even more difficult once winter's gone, and it sets up the next cycle for the next winter of problems within the NHS and discharging the social services. So a bit of stability, and Councillor Jessel is appealing for that on a frequent basis, will be very welcome. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Future social care workforce strategy. Okay, so there's no speaker. I'll call a cabinet member. Councillor Jessel.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I just briefly wanted to say what an excellent piece of work this is. People who work in what I call the care industry, the social care industry, have, during the COVID pandemic, done a tremendous job. But actually, they felt totally undervalued. They didn't get people banging saucepans on a Thursday. They didn't get the discounts in supermarkets. I was going to mention a particular one, but I thought I'd better not. And I think what we recognised is that if we want to retain people who are already working in the care industry, but also attract people who want to perhaps just do it at one level or pursue a career, we've got to give a far more positive image. We've got to provide them with the support to pursue their careers, to improve their training, because otherwise we won't be able to provide the services that we need to. So this workforce strategy has worked on the principle, it's been informed by a lot of people working in the industry, in partners, in the NHS, to bring together what their views were. And I mean, I don't shy away from the fact that money is obviously a key element. I think the vast majority of people who work to earn money to pay for all their living costs. But it was incredible how many people worked in the industry because of the personal satisfaction that they got, the help that they believed that was so important to the customers that they deal with. So we've tried to develop a strategy that builds on the strengths of it and helps to overcome those stumbling blocks that are there to people coming into this industry. And actually, it was advertised on the County Council's network as being a very innovative piece of work. And I think it is something that is fairly unique as a local authority working with the NHS, working with private providers, private care home providers, because they have the same problems, in actually coming together to have a combined strategy that we can then start to deliver. Now, the strategy will be launched hopefully by the end of March, and then we will start to deliver it. We've got the universities involved as well, because the training, that career progression is so important. And if I can put it into the context, if we do nothing, by 2032, it's assessed that we will need an additional 34,000 people working in that industry if we don't do things differently. Now, it may be the use of artificial intelligence, IT, assistive technology, but we have to do things differently. And we have to train people differently and train people to actually embrace these new technologies. So I really am very excited about this strategy. It's a good starting point, but we have to deliver it. And as I say, I do really recommend it and thank all those who have contributed to it because it does bring the industry together. We have a common problem. We've now got a common solution.
Staffordshire County Council's electric vehicle charging infrastructure strategy. Councillor Keith Lunder, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say, glad to see that there's some progress at long last on electrical charging and how that's going to work around the county in their particular resources. I'm really standing up here today in terms of what the Cabinet have been doing in the Staffordshire Moorlands, and we've just scrutinised and passed our own parking strategy. I hope that we can work together and be able to provide something that's useful. We're going for a 5% model. We've got variations on that theme, and we'll be going into consultation to see how our own car parks will work. So it's just a very quick note to say I'm glad that we're going down the right road together. Thank you.
Councillor Tina Clemens, please.
Thank you, Chair. It'll be no surprise to members that I stand up and speak on this. I'm really pleased with this report, and I would ask that it's sent out to all members, Councillor Williams, because it's a really good report. And as Councillor Williams is no doubt going to say, it's not the County Council that is responsible for this. It's down to districts and boroughs to work with the County Council to install the infrastructure. This came to Prosperous Staffordshire on the 9th of January. So I'm really pleased that members were given the input into that. And each council will need to think about what type of charger is best for them. Councillor Flunder has just said that the Staffordshire Moorlands are on it. But what we don't want is everyone having the 22 kilowatt chargers. That's a fast charger, and it'll take half an hour on most vehicles with today's battery power. What we want to do is encourage the 7 kilowatt chargers, which are the destination chargers, or a mix, because what we don't want is people to just charge and go. What we want in our towns is for people to charge, go and get a coffee, maybe buy a sandwich, look at the shops, and put money into the local economy. I would also like to ask members when they're discussing this with the county that they look at how disabled drivers are going to access the charging points. We went to the charging point at Rugby, which has got a whole bank of Tesla chargers and a whole bank of normal chargers. And we watched the disabled guy trying to get his wheelchair to the charging point. There's no space in the front of the vehicle. So you pull your vehicle in frontwards, you try and plug the charger in at the front, and there's no space for a disabled person to get round. They also need to be at a height that a disabled person can use them because they're actually quite heavy, the actual charging cable itself. We're also aware that more companies are now making electric vehicles, so it's everyone's interest in this chamber to ensure that they've got the right mix. Currently, Staffordshire as a county has around 300 chargers, and if you download an app called Zap Map, it will tell you where every single charger is in Staffordshire. It's predicted by 2030 that we need over 3,000. Got a long way to go. Currently, 70% of people will use their driveway to charge the vehicle, 20% will charge at work, and the rest will charge on a public network. The cost to the consumer needs to be proportionate, and councils are not allowed to profit from EV charging. I've got a question in later as well about residents using their home network to charge overnight, which could mean trailing cables across the highway. Councillor Williams has answered that for me. When installing chargers, there needs to be 2.5 metres separation from all electrics i.e. lampposts and lit signage, something else to take into consideration. And I just want to finish by thanking Councillor Williams for dealing with the questions at Prosperous. There was quite a few just from me, sorry. And also to Darrell Ayres and his team for working with the committee to get the strategy to this point. Let's be a county that leads the charge in EV infrastructure moving forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Nigel Yates, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And yes, I was very pleased to see this report, certainly very supportive of this report. And just to reiterate what Councillor Flunder said, there was a very good cross-party working group on this in the Staffordshire Moorlands. We achieved a consensus. We didn't quite get it pushed through in the speed which was required, but at the end of the day, I think the result, what we've got, is very laudable, and it does sort of say a lot for the cross-party approach, which we very much had there, so we really do endorse what Staffordshire Moorlands District Council are doing. There's a couple of things I want to raise, is where does Staffordshire Moorlands District Council fit with the other districts and boroughs who are delivering? You know, are other boroughs ahead? I noticed Stafford, for example, has certainly got a proliferation of charging points within the main car parks by the Sainsbury's. Don't quite know what that's called, but how are the other sort of areas coming? I'm aware that you have made a comment that it's got to be led by district. I'm also aware that earlier on we were talking about the country parks, you know, whether it be Greenway, Cannock, Chasetown or whatever. They have got car parks which are Staffordshire County Council car parks, so obviously you have got an element of infrastructure which you need put in there. And the other aspect is I don't want to see cables lying around at the front of people's roads and pavements. So again, Staffordshire County Council have a street furniture infrastructure which includes lighting. Okay, that's gone over to LED and low voltage, I appreciate that. But if sort of, you know, a low destination charge attached to the lighting, what I don't want to sort of see or feel is that it's all being delegated to the district councils because the emphasis is on district council car parks. The emphasis should be on the most appropriate available space to provide that service. And street furniture, country parks, tourist destinations are absolutely fine. The other thing which I will say, just to finish on, is it's absolutely imperative that local government, national government leads the way on this, because they need to seed it to get the confidence for people to buy electric vehicles, and then a little bit of capitalism comes in and market forces will start converting petrol stations, diesel stations into charging points. And I've seen now on the newer petrol stations, you're starting to get Costa coffees in the equivalent. So that is because they are working towards, they might not have said it in all cases, but they're working towards the fact that fast charger for 30 minutes, people are going to buy a cup of coffee and a sandwich and this, that and the other. But it's very important that we, and I do emphasise that local government needs to be the seed. And I do think Staffordshire County Council has a significant part to play in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Parry, please.
There's nothing like a bit of socialist muddled thinking to get this all mixed up, is there? Read the minute, read the report. This is about enabling. This is not about using taxpayers' money where private investment can do the job equally well. The market will develop, the demand will grow, the market will respond. Our job is to enable. Our job is to provide permission to where you need to put things. The market must decide. We can't decide all that, which lampposts, which streets, which country parks. There are going to be a growing number of opportunities for private enterprise, for supermarkets who install these things to attract new customers, for other locations to attract customers. It's already happening on motorway service areas and other places you go. They're appearing because they want people to stop and want to use their services, and this will be part of the package, part of the mix, part of the product. If we as councillors start dabbling in this, it's going to, it's our job to provide a leadership in terms of we recognise the need and the demand. We therefore have assets which people may well want to partner with us to put something in, but it's not for us to design solutions. The solutions must be designed by the marketplace. We don't provide mobile phone networks, although I'm totally frustrated by the fact there isn't one where I live. Very good. We don't provide networks. The market provides the network. We don't provide broadband network solutions, although we did lead on a package from government to insist that we got broadband here in the county. And that's about lobbying, that's about supporting, and that's about facilitating technological improvement, which we do. We do it all the time. We don't run buses. People run buses. We don't run telephony, and we certainly won't be the people who are responsible for EV charging. Because otherwise, I tell you, your inboxes will fill up very quickly when people start buying their cars and say, I haven't got one anywhere near where I live, because I live in Flash and there isn't one. You know, think about these things, folks. We play an important, strong role in this as the facilitating, leading, driving, supporting, engaging, encouraging, but not responsible for it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Wise words. Councillor Simon Tagg, please.
Chairman, I think wise words indeed there from Mr Parry, as he said at the Cabinet meeting. I think we all agree that this is going to be led by the private sector, but we have that role of enabling sites to come forward and the policy structure around it, which this EV strategy does. I think some of the challenges have been just pointed out by Tina Clements, because she's been plugged into this right from the beginning. Bum, bum. But I think you should apologise for that. This sits primarily under David Williams' portfolio, so I won't steal his thunder in a minute, but I'd just like to point to the cross-county working on this, and each district is signing up to this EV charging. I don't know whether Moorlands have done yet, but I'm sure they're going to do, but we did in Newcastle in our January meeting, and we've taken an approach in the borough that we've enabled electric charging points to be rolled out in some of our service-level car parks, and we're about to build a brand new multi-storey car park. I know that goes down badly, but it's part of a project to regenerate our Rycroft area, and we're going to have 39 EV charging points that the council will facilitate in that car park, and we'll get a private operator to run for us, and also it will actually generate some income for the Borough Council from that, so we're taking the lead on that. But Mr Parry is quite right. It is for the private sector to deliver, but we need the policy framework, and this EV strategy provides us with that. Thank you.
Councillor Colin Ratrix, please.
Chairman, I couldn't help but have a wry smile. I know you've called item 9, but item 12 is about numeracy. And lots of people in this chamber will know that I know a fair bit about numbers. And I actually can lose sleep over numbers. I'm that embedded in numeracy. And I wondered why we've got 3 paragraphs here and there's not a single number quoted. And yes, Councillor Parry, I have looked at the report and the minutes from the report of the Cabinet that met on the 18th of January. There's not a single number there, unless you count carbon net zero. And the mathematicians would argue that zero is not a number either, but that's another matter. I do think that we, as an authority, needs to get closer to the numbers. We need to have something in terms of targets. And Councillor Flunders referred to what's going on in Staffordshire Moorlands in terms of 5% growth. Councillor Clements talked about 300 charge points in Tamworth, across Staffordshire, sorry, and 39 charge points at Newcastle's car park. So we do know some numbers, but I think in terms of our strategy, perhaps if I can just mention it to the 2 Cabinet members that put their names to this report, we should get a bit closer to targeting what we want to do. It's fine that the boroughs and districts are going to be responsible. I take Councillor Parry's point, but I do think we need to have more joined-up thinking and more targeting of numbers. Otherwise, the boroughs and districts will say, well, you're coordinating it, it's the county's responsibility, and the counties are saying, no, we're leaving it to you. So rather than everybody leaving it to everybody else, let's get some numbers.
Thank you. Councillor David Williams, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to put things into context, obviously we've declared a climate emergency, trying to get to a target of net zero by 2050. And as a public sector, we're actually personally responsible for a very small amount of emissions. Transport accounts for yourself about 40% of the carbon output that we have within the county. So going to EV would remove around up to 40%. And we've got a role, but that role isn't that we are going to do it. It's not the County Council's role or the responsibility to install charging points. We know our communities and we want to work with the partner and local authorities, and it will be a joint working of facilitation and the private sector to make sure we've got a convenient and accessible network of charging points in Staffordshire that supports the move away from petrol and diesel vehicles, remembering that petrol and diesel vehicles will not be able to be sold after the 2030. This strategy, and when you actually look at the strategy, there's a lot of pages in there, has all the details and the targets and the numbers that people are talking about, provides the details for why we need to act, explains our current position in the county, and outlines the role that Staffordshire County Council will play to assist and enable the private sector to be able to provide the charging network we need for the future. I want to pay a particular thanks to Clive Thompson and his team who have put this strategy together, and also Tina in our scrutiny panel who actually literally have picked this thing apart, made sure that we've got the right things in place. There will be a different part, and it's not for this county council to actually start saying what charger goes where. That's why it comes down to the local. We're working with not just district councils, but they're working with parish councils. And in my own particular parish, that parish council is actually putting 2 EV chargers in Hayling Dean South. So actually things are working already, things are going in place. It is not for us to actually do that. We are going to help, we are facilitating, and we're making sure that the local need that is identified by the local people is addressed. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you. Staffordshire Sustainability Board Communication Plan 2023. Oh, sorry, can I go back to the last item? Please, just the council lead to the sum up, please.
I think you'd moved on in your own mind anyway, Mr. Chairman, so I'll sit down.
I think I'm thinking about lunch. Okay, go back to item 10 then. Staffordshire Sustainability Board Communication Plan 23. Councillor David Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, at the last full council meeting, I made a statement about the problems of over 65s and over 75s accessing the internet to keep them informed of the things which were going on. I find it interesting to see that Age Concern also have a concern about that problem, and also it's been the subject of the Office of National Statistics, who've produced a report and a study. The problem, Chairman, very largely is that although people may well have iPhones, they use those for communications with the family, but rarely look at the internet. And so really I hope that in what we're looking at as far as this report's concerned, that we do understand that we are not necessarily communicating with the older community, and that we should find ways of encouraging them to look at the internet and to be keeping themselves better informed. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, Cabinet Member Simon Tagg, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And just to reassure Councillor Smith, a lot of these events are taking place in town centres across the county, particularly the Carbon Bubble Roadshow will be going to every county district main town to promote that, so that will catch people as they come in shopping, etc. So it's not an online campaign completely. There are many physical events which people can go to. But I'm really pleased that this came to Cabinet. It's another product, as we have with the last one, out of the joint working that we're now doing with districts and boroughs across the county. We've all, each council, the county, districts, have all got to communicate to their residents the messages about climate change, to engage with them to ensure we get to our targets, which is particularly the county one, is net zero by 2050, but districts do have different ones. And we can play a key part doing that through our as social media networks, through roadshows in towns, and also through also our communities, whether they're parishes or community groups, communicating with them. I was at a parish event which Councillor Northcote invited me to at the end of January, where there was an event where I spoke outlining the County Council's programme on net zero, but they also spoke speakers about the reduction in waste, waste to zero, and also on energy production and renewable energies as well. So there's a whole load of things we can do to communicate with our residents. This communication plan brings that all together, and really pleased that it came through, and it's gone through our cabinet. It will go through each of the district cabinets, so district members look out for that. And I think it's, as I say, a series of events such as the Carbon Bubble Roadshow, and also recycling roadshows which go around the towns as well to try and increase recycling. And also a year of a calendar of events which was detailed in the report, and particularly one coming up which everybody should note is on the 14th of February is a Valentine's Day campaign, and that is to show that you can have a sustainable Valentine's Day and you can show your love for the planet. And also it's about recycling chocolate wrappers and also other things such as that tied in with that event. So that's just one way we can just use the diary events throughout the year to get those recycling messages out there and continue to put the messages out, because people are interested in this, and they're interested in knowing how they can recycle more, how they can cut energy production. And just, I know Councillor Smith is really passionate about this, and he's communicated a lot with us, and I think I'm not actually looking at the leader there, not actually revealing something that I shouldn't at the moment, but our council tax leaflet that goes out will have a page of environmental tips and also energy efficiency tips, because the two are very much linked now with the energy issues and rising energy costs, which spells out to residents ways that they can reduce their energy bills and also reduce their carbon emissions, and that will go to every resident in their bill when council tax bills go out. Thank you.
Thank you. Whilst I don't like going to afternoon sessions, we have 5 items left on the leader's statement. Then another 2 items before questions. So I'm now going to adjourn for lunch. The bell will go at 1:45, and we'll all be back ready to go at 1:50, please. Okay. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. It's now 10:02, so we'll continue. We concluded with item 10, so we'll now go to item 11 of the leader's statement, winter highways operations. Councillor Syed Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to convey my tribute to the hard-working crew as well for their dedications to keep us safe. At the same time, may I also seek the attention of the cabinet members. There are so many roads at the county, especially the new development, are left behind because of the greeted. And we found out that the issue is the adaptations. So can I urge the cabinet member and the council as well to do a concerted approach with parish, borough, and district, and also with the developer to get them in the system, so that the residents are also paying their council tax. They deserve a better service. Thank you.
Councillor Nigel Yates, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And yes, I'd just like to reiterate that. Thank you very much for the efforts which the gritting teams have made. The one comment which I will say, coming from Biddleford, which is within the Stafford Moorlands, and it works well for the Stafford Moorlands, and reiterating what my colleague has just said, some of the new developments and less new developments are not on the gritting routes. And it's the connecting roads which allow all the cul-de-sacs and things to feed into them. And living in a hilly area, there are one or two which are basically unpassable when we get freezing rain and a very hard, icy sort of frost situation. I did put forward, before I was elected as a councillor, some additions, and I was told, yes, the additions are absolutely fine. Which ones would you want taking off? That's not really the solution which we're looking for. What I'd like to look at is reducing the number of grit bins, which tend to be misused by people who've got long drives, and the grit bins have never got the grit in when you actually need it, and have that replaced by enhancing the gritting runs. I do think that there is a potential for an efficiency saving there, and I do think that when you're out gritting, just doing that extra little bit, because we're only talking of a small handful probably per town, but it does connect in with the newer developments which aren't on the traditional routes, and I would appeal that we do have that review as a serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor David Williams, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I'd like to pay tribute to the gritting crews who have been going out in some of the worst conditions that we've seen for many a year. Really, really low temperatures. We've even had such bravery that one of the gritters unfortunately slid off the road, but unfortunately the driver wasn't too badly hurt. He had one day where he went to hospital, checked up, and was back out the next day in another gritter. They're working at terrible times, obviously with terrible conditions sometimes, and they are keeping our primary and our secondary routes open, and I really do want to make sure that they're thanked, and I do that on a daily basis with the reports that I get. When we're talking about non-adopted roads, it's not for the county council to go around requesting people give their roads up for adoption. That's for developers to say that it's ready. They will then make sure they've got, as I said previously, they need to have the licences, they need to make sure the infrastructure's put in, so that we aren't going to be coming to the public purse to maintain that road within a certain amount. I think it's over 10 years. So we shouldn't be having to put any more money into repairing or doing anything on that road for a good period of time. And that's the point with it. As an administration, we're not going to spend money or waste money doing that. And when it comes to putting new routes onto the gritting, we're not about to do that. We haven't got the money for it. We actually are keeping our primary and our secondary routes open. Our bus routes are maintained. And when it comes to new developments, this is something where, when you're a local member in a district or a borough, you should be actually going out and asking the developers if they want to do contributions to make for that. But when it comes to grit bins, we fill all of our grit bins in October, and we're currently, due to the fact that I halted the progress of the velocity patcher, we're filling them up again this year with the grit bins, and the grit bins are there for people to use. They can be used inappropriately, but actually people don't realise that you don't need very much. You need a small trowelful to go over a road. The vehicle's going over it will crush it. That will make it work. So if you've got the fact that we've got grit bins in there, local parishes, local districts and boroughs can also work with the county council to put their grit bins on our side, and they can fill them, and that can be used. So from a county council point of view, we haven't got the money to do any more. Our gritters are working flat out, and I think they just need praise rather than anything else. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Alan White, please.
Briefly, Mr. Chairman, to add my thanks to the gritting teams. Sunday night, I was coming home from somewhere, the bowling alley in Tamworth for my son's birthday party. And the gritters were out Sunday night, doing a great job, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and we thank them for that. As far as grit bins are concerned, it is disappointing to see the contents of grit bins being nicked. Councillor Yates, when I was campaigning up in your division recently, I found one of our grit bins tucked away on somebody's drive. It wasn't your drive, obviously, but I appreciate that winter in the moorlands starts in September and finishes in July, but that doesn't excuse nicking grit bins. And so I would ask everybody who has a grit bin in their area, and they know that local residents are using the grit in the way that Councillor Williams has described, please don't nick it. It's for everybody, and use it sparingly, because you don't need to use tons of it, as Councillor Williams has said. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Numeracy, it all adds up. Councillor Philip Hudson, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Having worked in education for the last 10 years with SEN children and their students and their families, I very much welcome this. When you're supporting a maths teacher who says today, Phil, can you help me teach simultaneous equations and algebra? And you're looking at these kids and I'm thinking, well, I haven't done this for about 40 years, so I've had to do some catching up as well, because they teach it differently today than they did 40 years ago when we did O and A level. And also multiplication. They don't do it like we used to. They do multiplication groups now, so you have to learn how to do the multiplication grid to work out what to do. So why is it important? Well, the kids say to me, well, sir, why have I got to learn maths? Why have I got to learn maths and English? And I say, because it's very important for your ordinary life. You need to have a basic understanding of mathematics. When you get a job, you need to make sure that your employer is paying you properly, that you're not paying too much tax. When you go shopping, you need to know that you're paying correctly for the things that you buy. So it's very important that you have a grasp of maths. And unfortunately, over the years, and it goes back many, many years, some people have fallen through the loophole, haven't got GCE maths, and they're now parents and grandparents. And so I think this is really important now that we're helping people from all members of society, all ages, and it's very good because it will help them where we are at the moment. Family budget, family life, it's important that they are able to, because you'll be surprised, a number of people who can't do column addition, column subtraction, don't know the times table. So I think it's very important that we're offering these online courses to people to help them in their everyday lives, and also parents and grandparents to help them with the kids with their homework. So I very much welcome this. And what I do like about it is that it's easy to access and it's online as well, because there will be a certain amount of embarrassment from some people. Then they say, well, I don't really know a lot about maths. But if they can easily access this online, that cuts out the embarrassment. So thank you so much. I think it's going to be a wonderful thing, and it's something that we need.
Councillor Philip White, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Well, I think Councillor Hudson's said most of what I would have wanted to say. This is a lifelong skill, and I think it's really important that governments recognise the importance of this for people of all ages, and recognising the fact that in surveys about half of the working age population, so that's about 17 million people, say that they're not confident with mathematics. So having a range of courses like this available to people aged 19 and over, to do everything from simple basic numeracy on a very easy access level, either in person or online, all the way through to taking a GCSE if you don't have one, is a really valuable suite of skills. We're rolling this out at the moment across the whole of the county by geography. We also have particular focused efforts on hard-to-reach groups, vulnerable groups, and groups such as people leaving prison, for example, who we particularly want to be able to access these services. So it really is very inclusive, very open, and to Councillor Hudson's point, something that anybody who feels that they ought to improve their mathematics skills should really engage with and feel good that they're doing so, and not worry about whether they feel a little bit embarrassed about it. It's a really important and welcome programme that we will be rolling out over the next 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you. A50, A500, Westminster event. Councillor Philip Atkins first, please.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I attended this along with the Deputy Leader, and I think it was good to have the event. JCB were there, along with Midlands Connect and our local MPs and Heather Wheeler from South Derbyshire and the Department of Transport. And there is work going on, and I think with reasonable expectations to get things into the road investment strategies next 3 waves, I think. But it is a corridor project, not just a single project. But I'm just standing up to remind members that in the last talkback that JCB put out to their employees at the end of last year. They intend to double production in the next 5 years. That's from 40,000 machines to 80,000 machines a year. They're already on night shift working again, and the roaster factory is producing about somewhere around, I'm led to believe, about 110 load hauls, that's telescopic handlers, per day. So it is much needed as they use the East Midlands railhead a lot and East Midlands Airport, so that, along with their base in Stoke. That's them. But then there's Bombardier, as I said, at the Rail 23, massive things going on over there with Derby and in Burton. There's Toyota and everything that's going on at the A38, A50 junction. There's Rolls-Royce with its jet engines, some of them going to be used on alternative fuels, and also their mini nuclear plants, which they'll be no doubt doing in Derby as well. That doesn't leave out Stoke and everything that's going on there, and the 2 HS2 stations at Towton, and the other one which will end up at East Midlands Parkway now, with the Freeport there and the Freeport on the other side. So this is a massive project that needs doing. But it will also, before anybody says, well, what's it going to do for the south of the county, it'll help you as well. Because truckers like to save money. There's lots of other ways of travelling around the country, but it will help alleviate problems. And having seen the travel to work destinations of people who work in my division, an awful lot of them come from the south of the county. I was told the other day that when the cab factory moved from Rugeley up to the A50, I think there was only about 4 or 5 people didn't make the move from Rugeley to Uttoxeter. And it now employs over 700 people because of the up-to addition that they said they were going to make when the factory was built, and it's going to get even bigger. So the need for this A50, A500, the North Midlands manufacturing corridor is even more important and vital. One of the problems, I think, is to get your head around it's a corridor project rather than, well, what about my little bit? You have to have it all done, because if you only have one bit done, all you do is move the problem elsewhere. And anybody in my part of the world who goes over the A50 in the morning or night will see the queues of traffic that start at the McDonald's roundabout. There was one amusing thing at the meeting, was that when somebody said the McDonald's roundabout, the guy at the Department of Transport just said, they've all got a McDonald's roundabout. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Philip Hudson, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Obviously, I support my colleague, Councillor Atkins. Our division's border, I think it's the A50 that cuts us between us, really. Oh, we go around it, yeah. So I very much welcome this as well, because not only that, we've got JCB, which are going to be part of the National Hub to manufacture hydrogen engines, which I feel for in a rural area is very important, because I feel that that's the power that's going to power our agricultural machinery in the future. Electric is all very well, but I think we need to look at sometimes the logistics of how it will work in the rural areas. So I very much welcome JCB and their innovation to manufacture a hydrogen engine. And as we say, it's a corridor, the A500, the A50, which will connect the Liverpool Freeport to the Midland Freeport, which is very good for our economy. Locally, obviously this corridor will help our economy because of the industry that will be there, will boost the economy of Uttoxeter. Uttoxeter is also a growing town that's getting bigger, and so we need to, I know Philip said we shouldn't really look at our little patch, but I think I need to concentrate on the little patch in Uttoxeter, because it's very important to our residents, because as he said, we've got the McDonald's roundabout on the Asbourne Road that gets clogged up every day. I use the Derby Road roundabout myself to go to Derby every day, and it really does need looking at, and the residents, all they're saying about is, we've got so much traffic, what are you doing about it? So it's a win-win situation, and I know it's been talked about for many years now, and I think that we really need to make sure it gets done. We had Plan A, that went ahead. Plan B didn't quite go ahead for several reasons. So I very much welcome now the new talks to put this A50, A500 project into fruition, get it done, because I know that it will be very good for our local economy and our residents. It's all about quality of life, quality of where you live and quality of work, and those are three things that we need to sustain. Thank you.
Councillor Mark Whittington, please.
Thank you. Just for clarification, the reason that Project B didn't go ahead, well, there was more than one reason. There was 200 million of them, and that was the cost of it. So that's why it's now a national initiative, and the County Council did Project A, so we should be proud of that.
Councillor Philip White, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I won't dwell on the business case for the A5500 corridor. It's been really well made by the two Philips who've spoken before me, and we've discussed it many times in this chamber. It is one of the most important pieces of work that we're doing as a council, and the futures of a lot of people in our county, in terms of fantastic, highly skilled, highly paid jobs in one of the areas where we're already moving towards being a world beater in hydrogen technology, but we can cement that and turbocharge the businesses along that corridor through this investment is very, very clear. So this is really by way of an update report so that you know that we're working hard at this. This meeting, convened by Kate Nivedon, is an important part of getting this message embedded in departments in Westminster. The focus here was on the Department for Transport and Highways England. We actually have the person who writes the roads investment strategy for the entire country there. And they certainly did sit up and pay attention, and that was really welcome. Where we now need to land this as well is with the new Department for Energy Security and Net Zero. I had to write it down because it's rather new, and the new Business and Trade Department, and ultimately in the Treasury so they can make an investment decision on it. And we are hard at work at that. The leader and I have a meeting next week with the leaders of the other top-tier authorities along the full route of the corridor, so that we can update them and they can be lobbying effectively on this. And we're also working with Deloitte. We don't like using consultants. We're parsimonious when it comes to that, but we are using Deloitte to help us engage with the major businesses along that corridor as well in terms of the economic modelling. And that will all come together in what we think is a really strong proposal that will land in the Treasury, hopefully, and result in unlocking that much-needed investment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. 20 million transport boost. Councillor Mike Sutherland, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I thoroughly enjoyed that last topic. That's big picture for Staffordshire. This, particularly for Cannock, and that's what I want to talk about, on behalf of all Cannock councillors, we're delighted that the Luff Transport Boost funding secured by this county council, and that we will have the benefit of 9 million of that 20 million for improvements in Cannock. I'll give you a few examples, and I'll tell you why it's really welcome news. We've got lots of little bits that we need to do. Our town is almost gridlocked. I'm going to be hoisted for saying it. It's a small little town with a small ring road. Actually, the archery into it is very big. Some of the improvements, Beecroft Roundabout on Avon Road, that has been a problem for many years. I've lived there since the 70s, and it's not really improved. The other thing that we struggled with are footpaths in getting into the town and getting out of the town, because we put little bits of dual carriageway in, but not proper and appropriate pedestrian footpaths. We secured, believe it or not, and it surprised me that we didn't have it, but we haven't, is a cycling parking within the town centre. These are small little things, pedestrian enhancements just on the ring road into our main car park. We've actually also got 2 much-needed pedestrian crossings. So, and traffic signals upgrade on our main Avon Road and Walsall roads. various bus stop improvements as part of that £4.2 million. They are small in comparison. They are small in terms of what we've heard about just the last 5 minutes, but they will make a massive change. And for me, their active travel changes will help tackle the long term, because people won't walk where they can't get across roads in a safe way or in an easy way. So these will help tackle some of the long-term health challenges and easier access. We talked about jobs. We've got a big college. It's not easy to walk from various parts of the town directly into the college. And these will help us with the prosperity of the town. And also, I use that word pride in our town. We've got a Levelling Up Fund award of 20 million. The big investment is about 44 in total. If we had that and not this, it would be not a waste of time, but it would really stifle what we can achieve. So I'm over the moon personally, and on behalf of the councillors for Cannock Chase, thank you very much, and we're very, very delighted to have this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutherland. To you it might be small, £44 million, but as it's all on my division, I think it's quite a lot. Thank you very much. Councillor Anne Edgeler, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. At the County Council meeting on the 21st of July last year, I raised the question of the poor state of the Bradford Islands and the state of the A34 leading into Stafford from the south of town, saying it was a major gateway into Stafford. Fantastic, good news. I'm really pleased that the County Council has now secured the money to do the work. I would like to thank everyone involved, especially Councillor David Williams and his team, securing this money to solve the terrible state of this road. We have the money. Now, please, let's get on with the job. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Northcote, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is extremely good news for the Council, and I welcome the improvement of the major roads in the county. I will leave, however, the detail in terms of Burton and Cannock to my colleagues that ably represent those areas and concentrate on a footnote to the report. And that was the welcome news of the successful £17.1 million bid by Staffordshire Moorlands District Council to redevelop Leek Town Centre, including the Nicholson Institute, the Brough Park, the Library, Museum and Art Gallery. And I wish to particularly thank Councillor Flunder for his efforts within the District Council and the officers and fellow members that have successfully pulled off that bid. I have quite a strong link with this particular area. In fact, the gateway to the Nicholson Institute, I used to reside in the stone house there in part of my early life. That seems quite such a long time ago. And used to relish the fact to go up those long steps as a child to go to the museum and the Nicholson Institute and look at the moth collection, the bone collection and other things that were there, the tapestries that were, I think, a duplicate of the Bayeux tapestry at one point. But this is a fantastic news for the Leek Town Centre. My grandfather was part of the Brough, Nicholson and Hall. He was the Brough part that had John Nicholson, who gifted the Nicholson Institute to Leek Town. My other part of my family, William Spooner Brough, gifted the park to Leek, which was added to in 1921 by Mr. Tatton. This I particularly like to see because these are jewels. It's quite right that Leek is referred to as the Queen of the Moorlands. It has a bandstand, it has a park at lawn, bowls, tennis and a lovely park. This is most welcome to see that these legacy gifts that were given so long ago in the Victorian times, I think it was 1882, I can't be precise on that, but it's round about that time that the Nicholson Institute came into force. So to see this investment go into the legacy, historic and cultural importance of Leek, I fully welcome, and I hope that other councils will here too also. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Julia Jessel, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I couldn't let this item go without expressing sincere thanks to the leader and the deputy leader, and also the officers that put together this excellent bid. I've been campaigning for many years for investment in the A38. It's the corridor that's tended to be forgotten, but is a key strategic link between us and the West Midlands. This investment to upgrade the Branston interchange is absolutely essential to allow the continued development of new homes at Branston Locks and also further development of the employment zone, which brings good quality jobs to the area. So this investment, together with the additional investment to improve pedestrian and cycling routes, will make a huge difference to the people in Branston, and together with a soon-to-start upgrade of the crossing outside Ricknell School on my division for people in Branston is absolutely brilliant. But I would say I only hope that this is one of many investments in the A38, whether it's at Hilliard's Cross at Fradley or Clay Mills north of Burton. It is one of those areas where I'm afraid Highways England tended to take the view the A38 can take it. Anybody who drives along there knows that it is pretty well at full capacity. This will enable a full upgrade of that junction, which will improve the road safety on the A38 and prevent some of the queuing traffic. But I do congratulate those who put the bid together, and as I say, also the leader and deputy leader who have tirelessly pursued this investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor David Smith, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I listened with great interest to all the £1 million here and the £1 million there. I note in the report the reference to bus stops, but we don't seem to quite know who bus stops are the responsibility of, whether it's the parish council, the district council, the county council, the bus companies, or who. Can I suggest, Chairman, that we actually get our act together? We have got hundreds of bus stops that are unsafe, not least of all in my division, and I really urgently need some action taking to improve the safety. I've already had one accident at a bus stop which has resulted in a hospitalisation, and so I note the 20 million. If a very small fraction of that can go towards repairing bus stops and improving bus stops, then I would be an absolutely delighted member. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, but we don't run buses, and I don't believe it's our responsibility, but I will wait for the Deputy Leader to respond in due course. Councillor Keith Lunder, please.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd just like to say welcome to Councillor Yates. I didn't formally do that in my first speech, so apologies for that. I hope we'll be able to work together for the benefit of all the people involved, so I look forward to working with him for the next 2 years on that note. In relation to this item, obviously I am the Regeneration Officer for Staffordshire Moorlands District Council. I'd like to thank our own officers and also the County Council officers. We put an awful lot of effort into these two bids, and we're very, very grateful to receive the £17.1 million from the Luff bid for leak. I won't repeat anything but that Paul has said, but if I can invite him to one of our workshops, which will be running very shortly. Our board is set up and running at the moment. And please also can you note that as well as this, we have the Shared Prosperity Fund, the Rural Shared Prosperity Fund, some other monies that are coming in relation to many other things. I know Councillor DeVille, for example, has been working on the leisure centres and done very well on those fronts as well. And we've got some green energy projects coming in relation to that. So all in all, we've got a very busy time in the Moorlands to try and make sure that we get these projects up and running with plenty of consultation. I would hope that the Deputy Leader, Councillor Philip White, will work with us and be able to provide other bits and pieces to help us. I had a meeting today with Idris to look at the internet and the connectivity and things like that. So things are moving on at pace, and I hope to report back on successes as time goes on. But once again, I'd like to make sure and reiterate that we will be working with the County Council, who has a library in the Nicholson Institute, so everything else. I know. Yes. So anyway, thank you very much, and we will be working with you in relation to your facilities and resources. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Colin Greatrix, please.
Chairman, I wasn't going to speak on this item because none of the money's coming my way in my division, but David Smith has prompted me to get to my feet. I know a bit about bus shelters. I work in Warwickshire in local government, and there is a special statutory responsibility for the parishes to look after bus shelters, even if they're not owned by the parish council itself. Parish councils can have that responsibility. In fact, tomorrow I know of a bus shelter in Warwickshire which has been repaired by the parish council and it doesn't own it.
Thank you. Councillor David Williams, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I am especially happy with this award because it also means that Angela won't be constantly going on at me about her islands anymore. It's a real bonus that we'll be able to utilise for our area. I think it's going to address some of the issues, which means we can utilise our finances elsewhere. And we'll be working with the bus companies to ensure that this goes in the right way, as well as what the developments will be over the next 2 years, and especially with the Branston interchange. I think that's a really, really important infrastructure improvement that will make a big difference to the A38. Going through your area, Chairman, as you know, you've already had quite a lot of work done, so you've done very well out of this yourself. But it is important that we realise that that is an area that's needed it to be done. And therefore, I'd like to take a great bit of, actually pay homage really to Annabelle Chell and her team who've put this Luff bid together in the right way. It's very difficult actually because we're a rural setting to actually get the right points from the way that these things are made from government. So they've made it in the right ways and we've got all of the right things going on. Really mighted it all together and put it in the right frame. So thank you very much.
Councillor Philip White, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this is great news, but I must start by saying that I do think it would be very nice if Annabelle Chell, our excellent officer who wrote this bid, was able to devote all of her time to developing and delivering our connectivity strategy rather than needing to bid for money to fund it. It would be much better if that money was in our core budget already. But that is the way the government wants to deliver this funding at the present time and has done for quite a lot of years. So it's good that we're able to win these bids and it's much needed. I'll touch briefly on Leek. It's fantastic news that Leek's received its funding. I love to visit the Nicholson when I'm up in Leek. It is a gem. It is in need of a polish, and the investment into the markets and into leisure facilities in Leek is most welcome. But the core of this item is about the transport funding that we're receiving in Staffordshire. The Branston interchange is one of the three key interchanges that we need to get upgraded on the A38. So 1 down and 2 to go on that. So that is good news, but 2 to go. And the investment in the A34 is also extremely important and does fit with our strategy of our key corridors. So we've talked about the A50, A500 today. The A38 and the A34 are receiving funding through this. The A5 is also important to us. The leader attended a Midlands Connect conference regarding funding for that recently. We push on all of those fronts for our key strategic road network, both for our economic development, but also for the people who live in our county and use the roads every day. If these roads work well, people get to where they need to go on those roads. They don't need to journey off onto local roads to be able to make do and make their journey another way. It's good for us all if we get this major roads network firing on all cylinders. This is a very welcome contribution, but it would be lovely to have it in our core budget and to be able to plan it ourselves.
You leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you see the theme emerging that Councillor White's just referred to about getting the funding for these sort of things into our core budget. The same with skills funding, which we would like to see devolved down to Staffordshire County Council. And the same with the consistency of funding that we talked about at the beginning of this meeting, so it doesn't come in lumps that we have to bid for all the time. I'd just like to congratulate the Moorlands members. You've managed to drag this meeting further and further north as the meeting has gone by. Councillors Flunder, Yates, Atkins and DeVille there have managed to convert it partially into a Moorlands District Council meeting. I congratulate you on that. But let's remember that we're in the county of Staffordshire and we're working for all 880,000 residents in the county.
Thank you, Councillor Yates. The next item is entitled John Henderson, whoever that may be, and I call Philip Atkins.
Thank you, Chairman. There'll be plenty of time to embarrass John, and several occasions to embarrass John. However, I'd just like to say it's a measure of the man that he's agreed to stay on and effect a handover to his successor. And I'll just leave it at that, but and let him undergo the torture of wondering what we're going to say about him in the months to come.
Councillor Charlotte Atkins.
Yes, I just really wanted to say how sorry I am that John Henderson's leaving us. He's been an excellent chief executive, and the Labour group will always be very grateful to him for giving his valuable time to us and taking up our concerns. And I appreciate that the succession takes a very long time, so obviously grateful to John for staying on for that period, because clearly we do need a chief executive at the helm of the ship, and I'm sure that whatever you choose to go on and do will be a great success. Well, thank you for your service to the County Council.
Councillor Alan White, please.
You're not gone yet, John. You need to keep grafting until we found a replacement. There will be plenty of time to say thank you later, but in the meantime, thank you for agreeing to stay on until we have found a successor. It's very generous of you to be able to, for us to be able to do that. And usually when we have handovers of chief executives of councils, as many members who've been around for a long time will know, there's usually a gap. So we have that sort of period where we can't quite get things done the way we want to, and then it winds back up again. But hopefully, all things being equal, we'll be able to get a successor in place. And John will be able to do an orderly transition, as he would have been familiar with during his military time, because many of you will recall he was formerly a 2-star general in the British Army, and I was just merely a major. And isn't this a nice thing? Hey, I'm a major, a former major, and he's a former major general, and I'm the leader of the council, and John's the chief executive, and it's been brilliant to be able to work together. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and that ends the leader's statement. Next item, appointment of chairman and vice chairman of committees. Councillor Alan White, can you please move your nomination for the appointment of the vice chairman, scrutiny on the safeguarding overview and scrutiny committee? Councillor Philip White, will you please second?
Mr. Chairman, I move that you should be the vice chairman of that committee. How about that?
I'll second that.
Is that agreed? Thank you. The last item, hopefully, item 8, questions under Standing Order 8. Members, the 8 questions and answers have been circulated to members and published on our website. In accordance with the usual procedure, the questions and answers will be taken as read. I will allow each question 5 minutes in which to ask a supplementary question and to receive an answer. No debate is allowed on questions. If a question is not here, then there is no supplementary question. So item 1, Councillor Pritchard to Councillor Alan White. Councillor Pritchard is not here. Item 2, Councillor Yates to Councillor David Williams.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you very much, Councillor Williams, for your comprehensive answer. Whilst this is a specific question about one town within the Staffordshire Moorlands, I'm sure my supplementary question will resonate with other members. So, you know, you can take the supplementary as a collective one to do with Staffordshire. I will make a comment about the answer, though, and that is we did... Oh, I won't make any comments about the answer. I'll move straight on then. Whilst I've been sitting here thinking of the supplementary question, I've had a social media message based on a pothole post, and I've had four...
Excuse me, please, no. Please ask the supplementary direct. There's no commentary, just ask the question.
Okay. Why is it then that when Amy go to do a repair, they will sometimes just do 1 or 2 potholes which have been noted as urgent and step over a pothole which has also been identified on a report as less urgent, but they are there with the equipment in the kit. My concern is efficiency isn't just about buying new shiny toys, it's about work study and time study and method study to make sure that they do things efficiently. Could we please have a commitment as part of the efficiency savings package which you're looking for that looks at working practices to make sure that any reasonable potholes which can be dealt with there and then are dealt with? And I'm sure that question resonates with the rest of the members.
Well, thank you, Councillor Yates, for your supplementary question. Unfortunately, it's a little bit late because we were already doing it. We've started doing the area work, as in the whole place approach. We're also redoing the whole place approach for potholes. However, we're in a different time currently. So it's very, very cold, and therefore, like I said, the roadmaster that we would use, the category 3s, can't work at this time. So when it comes to category 2s and category 1s, which are more urgent, we are doing those either temporarily or properly, and then we will go back to be able to do the category 3s in the future. But that is the right way of doing it, because actually I can fill in category 1s and category 2s several times for the cost of a proper full-on repair. But there's absolutely no point in me doing a full-on repair at this time, because that will not, it will fail. So that's why we do what we do. The whole place approach, the whole area approach has already been muted. That is part of our reconstruction and our transformation, and you'll see that be happening from April.
Thank you both. Councillor Afsar to Councillor Tagg, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the Cabinet Member for the reply, and no further supplementary. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs Charlotte Atkins, Councillor David Williams.
Yes, I asked particularly about the switching of live cameras between the camera housing, because I've got residents who are fed up with HDVs thundering past their house, past a speed camera, which everybody knows is not working. And therefore, it's really vital that the live cameras are switched between different locations, because otherwise it becomes well known that that speed camera isn't working, and therefore it's completely ignored. So if in my original question I asked how often they're switched, and I'd be grateful for an answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm slightly surprised actually with the time that Councillor Atkins has been on the council that she doesn't know that we don't do these speed cameras. That is the Safer Roads Partnership. They manage it, they move the cameras around themselves, and it's not for us to say. When it comes to what Councillor Atkins is asserting to, where there are vehicles going which are HGVs too fast, I would suggest that the councillor work with the highways team, the local community team, to put a speed count on, because that will make sure that on over for several days basis we'll be able to notice exactly what goes on and exactly where it is, what type of vehicles, what speeds they're doing. But as it clearly states, we are not the ones who are doing the speed cameras. We're part of the group. Some of that information, obviously, because we don't want the public to know where the cameras are, is kept confidential within that group. But it is not Staffordshire County Council that runs the speed cameras. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hussain to Councillor David Williams. Councillor Tina Clements is no longer here. Councillor Pedesi to Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Chair. My supplementary question is to ask if volunteer agreements are in place to ensure that volunteers are treated fairly and consistently, and that it sets out a clear demarcation between their role and staff who have a contract of employment. My concern being, Chair, that the increased use of volunteers can act as a backdoor way of introducing large numbers of volunteers to deliver services that were previously provided by paid staff. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, in answer to that question, yes, there is a volunteer framework that's being put together as we speak, which protects both volunteers and helps us as well, and obviously helps the community at large. But can I just say, in answer to the question that was first posed to me, that volunteers gain as much as we do from this process. So for every £1 that we spend out for things like community funds in the VCSE sector, we get £10 back. But also the volunteer gets that feeling of community spirit, gets that feeling of being part of something, what staves off mental isolation and social isolation. And actually what they get back from this, it speaks volumes, and you can't actually quantify what they get back from this. But yes, there is a process here that we're employing as a framework to support the volunteers, absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. And the last question, if I turn my page back over, is Councillor Flunder to Councillor Williams. Excuse the public. There were no items under that part of the paper, so can I thank you all for your attendance. Until the March meeting, carry on working as hard as everybody does, and I'll see you all in due course. Thank you.